care what you say. I'm all the same, I'll do it my way. Don't you see, it don't mean nothing to me. When I'm said and done, I'll stand on my 2 feet. Yeah, let me be, I live by my rules. Independent, independent. Can't you see, it's my right to choose. Independent, independent. Once they try to teach me all their rules. I have my own idea, did it in their schools. Don't they see that we all have a brain? Better to learn, not to be entertained. Let me be, I live by my rules. Independent, independent. Can't you see, it's my right to choose. Independent, independent. Read my lips, I don't care what you say. I'm out of self, I'll do it my way. Don't you see, it don't mean nothing to me. When I'm said and done, I'll stand on my 2 feet. Yeah, let me be, I live by my rules. Independence, independence. Can't you see, it's mine to choose. Independence, independence.
So I wasn't really smooth with the fade out or anything this time, but can you
Who are
hear
you calling a
yourself?
5-head?
So it's the legend of the ever-increasing forehead, right? So if everybody has a forehead, then somebody who has a forehead that's a little more than everybody else's would have a 5-head, or perhaps a 6-head, or a 7-head even.
I have met an 8-head. And usually you only meet an 8-head when they have a receding hairline. But not this one. No.
Like mine goes to like 11, right? Just because I don't have,
Which is why it's real funny you calling me a 5-head.
I know, right? Like, wait a minute, you're a bald dude and you're calling me a 5-head? What the fuck is going on?
How dare you?
Yes. This is Beard Talk Live, episode 10. But I should just mention that as we just casually roll into talking about whatever the hell. We're uncensored. So we should get this out of the way. Are you ready? Shit, piss, fuck, cunt, cocksucker, motherfucker, and tits. Right. That is the mantra, the 7 words that George Carlin famously got arrested for.
Did we even say that last time? Because I know we meant to.
Yeah, we did, but much later in the episode. It took us like, oh, hey, you know what we haven't done? We haven't said the 7 fucking words. So we said the 7 fucking words. You're listening
And
to...
in case you notice an egregious amount of cussing, it's mostly because we have to deal with the FCC the rest of the time. So.
We just got done doing tonight's episode of Free Talk Live before this show, which is FCC, you can't cuss.
Compliant.
And all that kind of, yeah. And during that show, we go around, we say who we are, and at some point I said, egregious Philbin. And now, why do you say that, Captain? Where did that come
hilarious.
from? Yes, of course. But, Regis Philbin was a guy who was pretty famous. He did, a bunch of stuff.
Oh, yeah. I forget he's not on TV anymore.
Right. And,
God, I'm old.
Yeah, no, wait, and he's dead, I guess,
Apparently,
I don't know.
which I literally thought was impossible. I was pretty convinced that he was an android or an alien because he'd spent the last, my entire lifetime not aging at all, even a little bit.
Yeah.
And not the, standard not aging that you get in Hollywood where your face slowly tightens over a course of surgeries.
Yep.
But, no, he just legitimately did not age forever. And I just assumed he was going to continue to be a pillar of media forever. And then, no, dead. Who will celebrate the new year now? Who will have morning shows?
Yeah, so the word egregious it's a cool word. I like it a lot. And for whatever reason, that word popped into my brain at some point this week. And I was like, that's weird. And then just because Regis Philbin was already, a household name, basically, in my head, when I said the word egregious, just the word Philbin just popped into my head. And then I thought to myself, this would have been a great name for a punk band,
right.
I don't know, anywhere between 75 and 2000. Right? It just would have been a great punk band name because you would have taken advantage of an already household word and then threw a different word in front of it so that you're not violating copyright, and then egregious Philbin.
Right.
What does egregious even mean?
Oh, too terrible.
Too terrible?
Yeah. So
Like
there's
more
terrible,
than terrible?
and then there's too terrible.
It's that was terrible. No, it was egregious.
Yes.
I see.
That was an awful and reckless and horrible abuse of power. In fact, that was an egregious abuse of power.
So the opening music, I changed it up again this week. Instead of using Psycho Stick's Obey the Beard, this song actually popped up on one of my Pandora, one of these listening apps, Sacred Reich. They have an entire album from 1993 called Independent, and that was the title track from that. Pretty good chorus. Let me be. I live by my own rules. Kind of.
Gotta say, I would not click on a thing that has Reich in the title.
Sacred Reich.
Yeah, that makes me less likely to click on it.
There was also another.
So now they're not just Nazis; they're occult Nazis.
Well, Reich isn't specific to Nazis.
It kind of is.
There's
one third of the Reichs are Nazi.
Like Reich is also a last name.
Yeah.
So
poor bastards have had their name.
No, there's
sullied.
people today whose last name is Reich.
That's
right?
true.
So,
and I think of
the
Nazis
NFL.
every time I see that name.
There was also because it's heavy metal, right? There was also a band called Third Reich that out of the 80s and
which I guess you don't think that's Nazi either.
I mean, I don't know, about those guys. I wasn't really a big fan of theirs, so I never really indulged.
Okay, allow me to lay some education on you.
My point
the Third
is,
Reich is literally what the Nazi regime called themselves.
My point is that there are many bands who use the word Reich, not just these guys. Anyway, I like this particular album because all of their songs are about freedom, independent,
it would have been
free,
my loss that I didn't click
just
on.
like that, supremacy, if only, crawling, pressure, product, open book. These are just the song titles.
They have
another.
They have a song. Wait, what's the name of the band?
Sacred Reich.
And they have a song called Supremacy.
They do.
I'm getting a little worried about you now, man.
Why?
You hanging out in the pipeline? Have you been clicking on Stormfront sites?
Pipeline is the song that Anthrax covered.
Well, you know about the pipeline problem, right?
The pipeline problem.
Yeah. Yeah, so
pipelines only have one problem? Can we reduce it down to the ridiculous where pipelines only have one problem and it's the pipeline problem? I don't understand. What are you talking about?
Okay,
what you talking about, Peakless?
Okay, so there's a certain tendency for a certain personality type to move from libertarianism to like hard right, ultra white nationalist Nazism.
Yeah, that only exists in like one person that I'm aware of.
Well, one person that you've known personally.
No.
Oh, that was before your time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're talking about the former host of
Free Talk Live, yeah.
The guy who's in jail now, right? Yeah. I'm aware of that guy. I've actually never met him. I've had a conversation with him on the show when he called in from jail one time. And there was just, a little bit of back and forth, and that was it.
Right.
So to say that is a pipeline or a problem, I mean, is there further evidence for this? Because, because what I see instead of what you're describing, what I see is people who are already like far right leaning or whatever going, oh, this libertarianism thing sounds pretty good to me. And they come over to libertarianism because of, it sounds pretty good, right? It sounds like spot on with the non-aggression principle and all that, right? It sounds, but then they go, oh, wait, I can't be a racist asshole and be a libertarian. So I
can't be a libertarian and exterminate like whole races of people?
Right.
Well, one of these has got to go.
Right. And so that's my feeling on the thing. Like libertarianism or anarchism, as I like to refer to it as, like, the word libertarianism makes you think the Libertarian Party, or at least that's what it makes me think. And that isn't what should happen. Libertarianism should always be lowercase l, in my opinion, and it should be a philosophy, not a group of people involving themselves in politics somehow. If you want to have that's fine. Like, I understand where the issue comes in, but to me, libertarianism is really fighting against the state, right? If everything is individually agreed upon with consent, then there is no need for this large behemoth of an organization that does nothing but murder and steal, known as government. So what I see like libertarianism, the philosophy, attracting people from all different political realms, right? We see folks come from the left, from the right, from the center, from, every possible extreme ideology, otherwise intelligent people, who are articulate and can think, and they come over to libertarianism because they're like, oh, this is attractive. This sounds like it could be, and it does. It really does. It's just that folks can't seem to get out of their own way.
Well, I mean, it sounds amazing because it is amazing. And like the idea of the non-aggression principle is something that no one ever debates against.
Right.
I mean, of all of the attacks on libertarianism that exist, and there are darn near infinite from what I've seen, but of all the attacks, they never take head on the philosophy of don't hurt people and take their stuff.
Right.
Including threatening people so that you can hurt them and take their stuff.
Right. And if you just take that phrase, don't hurt people, don't take their stuff. If you just take that phrase with you in everywhere you go in life, you come very quickly to realize that there's a whole bunch of useless shit in this world.
You come very quickly to realize?
I did. I realized as soon as I was like, if I do apply this seemingly kindergarten, learning philosophy, right? Something like Dr. Seuss you think would, sort of teach you. Like, all of a sudden you're like, well, wait, if I'm responsible for making my own decisions, then why do I need this whole other thing in my life?
Yeah, well, I mean, the difference of what you're applying is universality.
Yeah.
So it's not just that you apply this theory of don't hit people and take their stuff. It's that you apply the same standard of behavior to agents of government as to non-agents of government.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's really what it comes to. So, okay, two things I really wanted to point out about the whole pipeline problem. So you'd pointed out that libertarianism is attractive to a lot of people who are very hard right leaning in the first place, right?
Yeah, or left, or I mean, like it attracts people from all different ideologies.
Okay. Well, so the reason that that libertarian circles in particular are attractive to people whose political ideology is completely unacceptable in polite society is because we won't initiate force to stop them. So, like, if you want your town to be a sundown town, we will not initiate force to stop you from doing that, to stop you from putting up a bunch of signs that say, you know, various forms of don't be here when the sun goes down.
Right.
Now, we will use force once you've initiated force. Like, okay, they happen to be in an area that either doesn't belong to anyone or belongs to someone that is fine with them being there, but still, that area is too close to your area, and then you know, hang them. Well, then you absolutely deserve all of the raining fires of hell to come across you.
Yeah.
Like, at that point, you have initiated force. There is nothing in the non-aggression principle about responding with less force.
That's true. That's true. And the difference between, like, I don't know, like maybe the hippies, right, and libertarians is that libertarians are not necessarily pacifists. In fact, they're necessarily non-pacifists, as long as they believe that you are within your rights to defend yourself and your property.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the difference between, like, a pacifist and a libertarian, right? A pacifist would just not respond with violence when violence is upon them,
right.
Whereas a libertarian, while they may not respond with violence when violence is brought upon them, they also may. And that's the like difference between the pacifist philosophy and the libertarian philosophy, is that libertarianism says you're within your rights to defend yourself, your family, your property.
Mm-hmm. I look at it largely as libertarians recognize the difference between inside civilization and outside civilization.
Yeah.
So inside civilization, you haven't used force or fraud against anyone else. You haven't hurt anyone. You haven't taken their stuff.
Right.
Okay, well, as long as that's true, I'm not allowed to do certain things. I'm not allowed to hurt you and take your stuff. But where the libertarian recognizes that once you aggress against me or anyone else, you have left civilization. The pacifist makes no such recognition. And that's why a libertarian philosophy is practical, where a pacifist philosophy is not. Because a libertarian philosophy does not require that anyone else behave by it. It just requires that if you want me not to use force against you when I can, that you have to abide by it.
Right.
Whereas in order for pacifists to continue to exist, other people have to choose not to aggress against them.
Right. That's true. Well, right, yeah, in order for them to continue to exist, right? Because if there was some sort of a gathering of pacifists and somebody didn't like pacifists, want to take them all out, there they go.
Right.
So long, pacifists. Whereas if there was a group of libertarians gathered somewhere, like, I don't know, the state of New Hampshire, for example, and there are people who didn't like libertarians, it wouldn't be so easy to take them out, because libertarians do, of course, believe in self-defense, and in fact, are prepared to defend themselves most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
There are more guns in New Hampshire than, many states, and I would be willing to bet that the libertarians have a whole bunch of them.
Mm-hmm.
So
I would be surprised if anyone had us beat even per capita. Yeah. I mean, maybe Wyoming, just because there's like 4 people there.
And the gun laws here are oh my God. Like, I thought it was cool.
Constitutional?
Almost. Free. Like, I don't need a license to concealed carry. I can just concealed carry wherever I go and whatever I do. And, there's a couple exceptions. Like, I don't think you can go to the courthouse, or at least through the metal detector.
Yeah, no, it's not completely constitutional. Because, okay, if you wanted to be fully constitutional, then you couldn't stop me from having a nuke.
That's true. Yes.
I mean, there would be literally no laws against guns, because like the wording in the the Second Amendment is infringed. Which, if you think like, oh, those tassels on the very edge of the thing, yes, that's called the fringe.
Right.
That's where the fringe is. So like a fringe idea, it's way out here on the edge. That's where you're not supposed to get to in screwing up my ability to have weaponry.
Yeah.
Or defenses. Because the word arms means both armor and armament.
Right.
So you are not supposed to even begin
It also
to
means
stop
limbs.
me from having nuclear weapons.
It also means limbs.
If you're going to follow the Constitution. And if you want to follow the spirit of the law, then you have to buy me a nuclear submarine so I can keep up with you.
I have often said that if the United States government really was concerned about its citizens' safety, right, and this is in the in the throes of all these shootings and school shootings and theater shootings and mall shootings and cop shootings and all this kind of stuff, if they really cared about your safety, they would in fact give you a gun and ammunition, because every military strategist knows, military strategy 101, they know that the most difficult area to take over is one where the citizenry is heavily armed.
Yeah.
So if the government actually cared about you and your safety, there would be mandatory gun training in public schools. There would be mandatory armament, self-defense, right? Taekwondo, karate, whatever it is, right? You'd be able to select that. You'd be able to are you drawn to a particular type of firearm? Oh, well, you go take this class over here, right? There'd be, variety for you to choose from for what what were you good at? Oh, I was good at the pistol, or I was good at the long rifle, or whatever, right? So you'd be able to tailor that to your proclivities or whatever you're most interested in or drawn to. Amongst other things, archery, right? I know that exists in some schools and high schools, like middle school, high school, still to this day. But some of them, they've gotten rid of that because, it's dangerous. We don't want, you'll shoot your eye out, kid, Christmas story type deal. But, yeah, I mean, all of these things would exist and be mandatory in public schools if government actually gave a fuck about you. And they don't.
Right.
They don't. They want more for themselves and less for you.
And, imagining something that's actually possible, because if you have a government, then they honestly believe that some group needs to have a monopoly on the initiation of force.
Right.
Now, we on the other hand don't believe that, but I do believe in making it socially mandatory. So with social mandatory, you don't deal with people who don't do that. So I would absolutely say that it is socially mandatory that you don't beat your pet.
Okay.
Now, that doesn't mean that I'm going to knock down your door and abduct you to a cold room and keep you tortured and away from your family because you hit your pet.
There are some dog lovers who would do that.
There certainly are, and that's a violation of non-aggression. I'm sorry, dogs are not actually human beings. They are not, you can't make a contract with them, they cannot follow the non-aggression principle, and you can't have the same expectations of a human being that you, of a dog. At any rate,
that being said, don't beat your dogs.
That being said, I do not want to be anywhere near people who beat their dogs. Those are terrible people who will do terrible things in other. For me, it's a warning sign. It's a canary in the coal mine. Oh, you're cruel.
Yes.
That means you will end up being cruel to me.
Right.
And while you're currently holding off on being abominable, that will not last forever. So for me, that's just a warning sign that's okay, get the hell out of here.
Well,
do not ever help this person.
And the other thing it says is that the person being cruel has been cruel too previously.
Right.
Because that's where you learn that shit from.
Yeah,
somebody needs to be cruel to you. And then, so this particular imaginary person is in the middle of continuing the cycle of abuse, right? He himself has been abused and, watched, whomever his parental units were abusing dogs, and he thinks that's the right way. And so he goes ahead and does those same things. Same thing happens with child abuse. Same thing happens with any sort of, emotional trauma or any type of physical abuse, right? It gets perpetuated as a cycle until somebody consciously becomes aware of it and stops it.
Yeah, cruelty and empathy are both languages.
Yeah.
And if you are not around that language, you will never learn to speak it.
All right. We'll get to your calls in just a minute. Some people have called and gone away, and there's at least one person holding right now.
Oh, no.
603-283-6160. I did a little, social media, put up a thing, say, hey, we're going to be on again. So hopefully that helps. I do want to thank our previous show listeners for listening and joining us and tuning into this show, because
Absolutely.
I really enjoy this show. One of my pet peeves of Free Talk Live is that I can't say fuck. I can't say shit. I can't, the FCC words. And so,
how am I supposed to tell you when I need some fucking emphasis on what I'm saying?
And that's how I fucking talk, right? Like if you meet me in my daily life, I'm like, fuck, shit, fuck, piss, whatever, right? And I try to tone it back a little bit, particularly if I'm in a professional situation, right? I can switch it off. Right, but it's so dumb that I have to. Right, free speech, my ass. Right, if free speech were a thing, I wouldn't have to have a switch in my head that I go mentally turn off the cussing.
Yeah, how the fuck did we lose that? Because obviously we didn't have this long before I was born, or there wouldn't be an FCC.
Right.
But okay, this was obviously we were so smart about this that we realized, if we want to not shoot each other, we should be allowed to talk to each other instead.
Right.
And if we're not allowed to say certain things, then we can't talk to each other about those things.
Right. Yes.
Once upon a time, we were smart enough to realize that, and we encoded in it, right before the whole "you're allowed to have guns" thing.
Well,
the reason that you're allowed to be capable of greater violence is so that you can protect our possibility of not having to use it at all.
Right. Yeah. And it of course, is a byproduct of the technology known as broadcasting. Right? Communicating one-on-one, telegraph, right? Early telephone.
Right.
That kind of thing where it's a one-on-one communication. That's not broadcasting, right? So you can still say whatever the fuck you want, and you largely always have been able to do so in a one-on-one communication environment. But broadcasting, when it's a one-to-many, right? Two guys sitting in a studio broadcasting to, many people, hundreds, thousands, whoever, or however many people are listening, is when somebody along the lines got upset, right? Somebody said something that somebody got butthurt by, and they complained, and they went, okay, you guys, you can't be, and they started laying down rules about what can and can't be said. Unfortunately, instead of the market dictating those things, right? Because if there's somebody out there that prefers not to hear me say shit, piss, cunt, fuck, cocksucker, motherfucker, and tits, they have this thing called choice. And that is they can, stop listening to this program right now if they have a problem with me saying any of those words. And that's how the market should work. Right? The market should be like, guess what? We lost 700 viewers in one night alone because you said fuck.
And that's going to naturally moderate it, too. Right. Because, if this program, where we're allowed to say those words, was nothing but those words, well, that gets awful boring really quick. Who wants to listen to 3 hours of that? No one.
No one.
Not even nobody.
Not even nobody.
But okay, somewhere between continuous stream of foul language and zero foul language, somewhere in the middle there is where people are actually comfortable, imbibing information.
Yeah.
And the only way to find out exactly where that is to let the people decide.
Yeah.
And sure, some people are going to be like, no, my correct zone is 0.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you're not going to listen to my fucking show, are you?
Right. And what I don't like is that the FCC is seemingly in the workplace, right? Now, the workplace is not necessarily a place of broadcast. I'm talking about office environment, right? And sometimes in other work environments as well. But I think largely the trades, if you're working in the trades, you're cussing. Pretty much on a daily basis.
Yeah.
At work, while you do your job. But in the office environment, the FCC seemingly exists there because it's taboo.
Oh, yeah.
For you to say any of those 7 words and some other words too while you're at it. And so you have to act, right? In a real office environment, you have to put on an act.
In most trades, you might end up bleeding.
Yeah.
You know, like you're working on the HVAC or you're working on a car or whatever, and something slips.
Yep.
And suddenly you're bleeding. You go, motherfucker!
Right.
And we have research to show that you literally can take more pain as long as you're cussing.
Yeah.
It's one of those weird things about how we're built.
Yeah.
The fact that you're allowed to express your discomfort makes the discomfort a little bit less uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So yeah, the trades, it's fine to do that. Whereas the most likely injury that you're going to have in a white collar environment is a paper cut.
Yeah.
And it's a breaking decorum
but
if
I
you
mean,
start screaming in of a paper cut.
I've had some motherfucking paper cuts, if you know what I'm saying. Like a paper cut so paper cutty that you're like, motherfucker. Because, sometimes, man, the paper cut, man, that's all I'm saying.
And in an office, that happens too.
I've been like punched in the face and not been like motherfucker, but like I've had a paper cut and been like motherfucker.
Yeah, paper cuts are bizarre because they're like the dullest cut you will ever receive. But the thing is, like in an office, it's so rare for that to happen that the social environment just doesn't expect you to cuss at a moment's notice. So it's very jarring in that environment. So yeah, absolutely. The FCC, which is about as white collar as it gets, is used to that environment.
All right, let's do what we do here on Beard Talk Live. Beard Talk Live, who the fuck is this?
I'm the one your mother warned you about.
Are you on speakerphone again? He is on speakerphone.
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
That is the sigh of you cut me.
There we go. Who the fuck is this?
You fuck me on hold for an hour and a half and then expect me to not be on speaker?
Yeah, actually we do, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the expectation.
Well, number one,
well outlined.
Yes, we
well
do.
Said, yes.
Number two, an hour and a half, really?
No, you weren't on
well,
hold for that long.
Okay, so it was a half of that.
It was 1/3 of that. We haven't even been broadcasting for a half hour yet.
Yeah,
well,
if you've been on the phone for more than half an hour, that is your fault, not ours.
I've been on the toilet for more than half an hour.
Is that where you're calling from?
I don't want to
know
about that.
We'll not discuss how full of shit I am, because that would be a subject for another day, now, wouldn't it?
Aha, which is why you're not on the toilet now. Because you're not about to be less full of shit, are you?
Well, I've always been full of it, but I have something to contribute, and you guys know that.
Delinquency?
I've been full of it, but I have something to contribute.
You're going to contribute to our delinquency?
I probably have. We might have been on a street corner 50 years ago.
Well, that's interesting because, I'm only 50 years old, so.
If we have, I look amazing for my age.
I do look good.
You could have been that baby in the Dave Chappelle.
All right, well, go ahead and contribute, Major.
Well, I don't know. What would you guys like to talk about? Sasquatch, grizzly bears, your politician there, the general that's running in your state? I think
Wait a minute.
Would be a good place to start.
You just gave me an idea, Major. Sasquatch for president.
Hey, I'd vote for him.
Right? Let's get a campaign for Sasquatch to become president, because
I would prefer Sasquatch to any human.
Definitely.
Well, we've always
he would veto everything.
Man.
Sorry, what?
We've always had the invisible man. That is look at Biden. He's
you're cutting out there, Major.
Yeah, I don't know what you're doing. You suddenly got really low and quiet.
Can you not hear me?
There we go.
That's better. Not sure what.
All right. Well, I might have got it too far away.
I will say that, especially during his campaign, Biden has been the invisible man.
Yeah, exactly.
He's been the blathering fucking idiot, is what he's been. Holy fuck,
his
man.
whole campaign, he hid in the basement. Dude.
Honestly,
he supposedly beat Trump by 5 million votes or something.
Well, that's because it was Trump he was beating. Like, have you listened to that guy talk or tweet or do anything ever? I can see why people don't like him.
Okay, Major.
No, the thing is, Trump, and you guys have obviously not followed the numbers, Trump got more votes than anybody. And Biden, who hid in the basement for 6 months, somehow or another beat him.
Yeah. It's
It
all
was all this.
it's all
COVID
fucking rigged. It's all
mail-in
like
bullshit corner box crap.
yeah. If voting was effective, they would make it illegal. So like it's just a way for them to give you the illusion that you have choice. Hang on. Major, you've called in under the influence, not necessarily like you seem more coherent today than like say your most drunk day. But even on your most drunk day that you've called in to particularly Beard Talk Live, you were still more fucking coherent in your ability to speak than Joe Biden when he's sober.
Corrupt, sir.
What?
I said that's corrupt, sir.
I mean, yes, government
I
is
pulled
corruption.
the cork a while back. I probably got about a pint in me. But
Nice.
I got no sense to chase it hard with water and, had some orange juice and whatnot. You got to keep vitamins up.
I would like to find out who determines what drugs to put Biden on. Because whoever that is, they are doing an amazing job. I mean, really,
don't
like
even know
I've
if Joe
seen that
Biden
man
is
attempt
Joe
to
Biden.
operate. I mean, like he is so bad at literally everything that they had to fake the footage for him climbing onto a helicopter.
Right.
That is an actual thing that actually happened. And
I
yet,
have heard-
somehow
I have
whoever
heard-
determines what drugs he's on does so well enough that he can get through like a 1-hour speech while mostly talking like a human.
Well,
I
some
have heard
teleprompters.
I have heard reports that he is not even. Joe Biden is dead. This
Could be.
guy is supposed to be some kind of a droid or a drone or whatever the hell they call an android, something like that. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, so that's
And
That's
you
a
think
different
about
theory than I've heard.
Sunglass Man, when he can't make eye contact, he can't make relevant decisions. It's not that far fucking fetched.
Yeah.
so maybe what we're seeing when he like shake hands with nobody is and not that nobody, but like no
Yeah,
one
when he
is that
salutes-
it's the
salutes.
AI failing.
Yeah,
You've
the
got-
fucking Easter Bunny had to come save him.
That AI feeling. Whoa, that AI feeling. It's been known for a long time that politicians have employed actors, lookalikes, for security purposes. So is there evidence of that with Joe Biden? I don't know. I've seen some things where, like, here's a picture of Joe Biden at the beginning of the campain, and here's a picture of him now. And don't they look like totally different people?
He
Like,
does honestly look different than like significantly. He looks very significantly different from what he looked like when he was younger and in politics.
yeah, or did they just switch up his medication, and so now he looks different than he did at the beginning of his campaign?
I don't know. What gets me
I-
about
I
that is that
bumped
the
in on
ears
this
look
one with
different.
Ian. I bumped in with this one on Ian a while back because there was controversy about the Queen of England
Yeah.
because she lived to like 97 or whatever. And what was she, a bloodsucker or, vampirist or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
But
Well, she's definitely the
she was
descendant
the Queen
of
of
one.
Wales. She was the Queen of Wales. And my grandmother was 100% Welsh. And all them old girls, even if they got obese, lived well into their 90s. So it's a damn good bloodline. I'm like a third Welsh, probably 2/3 Black Irish, and a little bit of Austrian.
Right. Every time you mention
I
the
got
Welch
some-
part,
I
I
got some
make a
hard-ass
joke
blood.
about like grape juice, Welch's.
Well, you can squeeze it all you want to, but my nuts ain't popping.
I
I don't know where that came
the,
from.
The good news is that I've already squeezed
It came from
them
the
as much as I
roulette
want to,
wheel of
which is
my mind.
none.
Hey, there we go.
0%. Yes.
That makes two of us.
0%. So
So
yes.
Go on. No, go on.
I do think that
Yeah,
it's very strange that she lived as long as she did anyway.
Who? Queen of Wales? Queen of Wales?
Yeah, Queen Elizabeth.
Oh.
Like, but I'm not on the like clone or AI robot or even lizard people. Like, no, I just think that weird shit does actually happen from time to time.
It does.
And the fact that she had a reign that was that bizarrely long, I mean, it was bound to happen eventually. Law of large numbers.
It's like that big earthquake that hasn't hit the West Coast yet, but is totally overdue.
right.
It's coming. Everybody knows it's coming. And when it hits, they're gonna be like, "Oh, that was the one."
Now that being said, I'm pretty sure she's a descendant of Vlad the Impaler, so who knows? How much baby blood does she bathe in? I don't know. Well, none anymore, but who knows?
That's
I mean,
funny you should bring that up. I was just talking to a buddy of mine tonight about Vlad the Impaler on the phone. He was Genghis Khan was not more heinous than this man.
What if
that depends on if you count it by numbers.
Major brings up something that he didn't mean to bring up, and that is, oftentimes people ask, if you could have dinner with anybody in history, past or present, dead or alive, who would it be? I say this. If you could open up a phone line to anybody in history, I'd like to get Vlad the Impaler on the phone and Genghis Khan on the phone and just, have them jive with us a little bit.
How about
and of course, since we're using sci-fi technology on this anyway, you may as well throw a universal translator in there so we know what the hell they're saying.
No, fuck that. Let's just wing it.
Fuck it.
We'll straight fucking wing
Mongolian and Romanian.
Major can translate for us, can't you, Major?
Fucking A. I'm the Wolverine. I talk all dog.
How's your Mongolian these days? Pretty good? You brushed up on it?
Little rusty? Little mirror?
Yeah, I don't think
Not so but more mirror.
I will not be able to take the contract.
Oh, all right. Well, I don't have the technology to call the
about wrestlers.
I'm suddenly reminded of this, someone got to, the very height of signing and doing sign language.
Okay.
Yeah. And, didn't know a lick of it.
What?
Didn't know it at all.
How is that possible?
I know, right?
How do you not know a thing, but yet you're at the height of it?
I know, right? But no, seriously, they're, signing for politicians, and then they got caught. It's wait a second, this can't be your first gig.
They're given gang signs. And...
So how long have you been up to this? And no, it turns out had no idea how to sign whatsoever, but was mildly convincing at pretending to sign.
Wow.
You gotta be fucking kidding me. Now this had to be way back when they were just putting sign language.
No, this was 2 years ago. This is 2 years ago tops.
No shit.
Yep.
That's fucking sad.
Yeah. It really is.
That's fucking sad.
Apparently, no. I mean, I guess, who does a deaf person call?
I would think this would have been back in 1986 when they were putting it on a sidebar and this.
But wouldn't they be amazing at texting?
I remember the old Saturday Night Live bit where they would have and also tonight we have Dave helping us out for the hearing impaired, and so they'd read the news story and then they'd show the little picture of this guy up in the corner, and he'd just put one hand on, or one of each hand on either side of his mouth like he's yelling through a megaphone, and be like, and they'd be like, today in the news, and he'd be like, today in the news, there was a murder on 72nd Street. There was a murder on 72nd Street. And so he's not doing silent, he's just yelling, right, for the hearing impaired. And I thought that was a brilliant bit.
So,
well, back in the day, when we was little kids, if somebody said you was all thumbs, that mean you kept dropping cups and was just basically a clumsy bastard, right?
Yep.
Butterfingers.
Well, now that everybody's enthralled with their smell phones, being all thumbs seems to be an advantage.
I have seen some people with some wicked fast
cute.
thumbs, man. I realize that's a New England thing to say, wicked. Right? But I have seen
awesome.
Particularly young people that got I've seen people who can type 130 words a minute. On a keyboard, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's amazing to see. You're just damn.
Yeah, I used to be able to do that.
Speed, right? But I've seen people on the keyboard, on the thumb, on the phone, and I'm just I can't even see your thumbs. They're moving so fucking fast that it's just a thumb blur. And I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ, how much caffeine have you had today? And they're like, what? This is how I always type with my thumbs. I'm like,
dude, I'm looking at my thumbnail. It's the size of a quarter. I'm looking at my thumbnail right now. It is the size of a quarter.
What did you do to your thumb?
Really? How large is your thumbnail that you're looking at right now? I wonder.
I got big lunch hooks.
That's always what I think about when I talk to anyone, is how big is their thumbnail?
Oh, I thought when you talk to anyone, you think about how large is Major's thumbnail.
No, I'm saying it's hard to control these little devices. big, fat, ham-bone fingers.
Yep. Do you have the big senior citizen remote control for the TV with the giant buttons?
Oh, hell, dude, I don't have a TV. I got a DVD player. I listen to the radio. God loves me.
Better
All
for
I
you.
need.
Yeah.
So, speaking of how we consume information,
Okay.
and since you were bringing up the, cupping your hands and yelling,
Yes.
and earlier you were talking about broadcast information.
Yes.
Well, it occurs to me that for, hundreds of years, at least, all information that we've gotten in general about the world, instead of, specific information about people we know,
Okay.
but the in general information that we've gotten about the world for centuries has all been broadcast based. Because before the internet, it was television, and before television it was the radio, and before radio it was the newspaper, and before the newspaper it was the town crier. But in all of these, you have a single source broadcast for all of the information.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
What's different is that for the first time, we're transitioning in the other direction. So, at this point, half the time, if you want to know something, you got to go search it out yourself.
Yeah.
Which, that's a very different model. And, I mean, it doesn't seem that huge, but neurologically, it's completely opposite. Because, your nervous system's always trying to keep you not dead, right?
Right.
So, if a threat comes at you, your nervous system cuts down to its simplest possibilities. It goes, do I need to run away? Do I need to stand here extremely still? Do I need to punch it in the nose before I lose my opportunity to punch it in the nose?
Fight or flight.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right back to the grizzly bear I was going to tell you about. Go on.
Oh, we do need to get back to the Grizzlies
No,
at some
go
point.
on.
But if, on the other hand, you are seeking out a danger, okay, geez, these snakes keep coming along. Let me track this one so I can find out where they live. And you're following that little sucker back to where this big ball of snakes is.
Yeah.
You use
That's
a
how you
completely
find
different.
the den. Yep.
Say what?
Yep.
What'd
That's
you
how you find the den.
Exactly. Right. So now if you're tracking that snake down to its den, you activate the other part of your nervous system, the complicated part of your nervous system, where you got time to okay, well, let me think of a plan. Let me stand and wait for this. Let me go get someone who knows what the hell is going on with this. Let me go consult Merlin. Let me pull the sword from the stone. All of these, complex, innovative solutions. That's the part of your nervous system when you go after the dangerous thing yourself.
Right. That's
Patience.
Patience. That's in
if
line.
If you never sat on the riverbank with a large rock on a well-flowing stream and looked at the tornado that's created behind that rock, that's where the big fish sits.
Well, and you guys are talking
there in calm water where everything he wants flows by him.
You guys are talking about something very that I've been trying to find sort of the what is it that wakes people up to the fact that government is a useless, barbaric organization of antique variety that needs to go the way of the dodo, because it's happening more frequently now than it did, say, pre-internet.
Yeah.
And I attribute that to the fact that the internet exists and that it was as free as it was for as long as it was. It's still rather free. You can find almost any information, but one of the things I've found in people who have woken up to this is that they are, naturally curious. Right? These are people who just are inquisitive by their nature. Their personality is sort of one that they're like, oh, why is that?
Right.
Who did that?
They
Why did this
actually
happen?
have 3 brain cells and might accumulate more than 130 points.
Right.
So.
But I also wonder if it's because of what y'all are alluding to, which is these are people who go out and seek things on purpose. Now, one of the biggest changes I've made to my life in the last 20 years is that I don't allow the TV to feed me, Most people growing up in my age, most people just do that. You get home, you turn on the TV, you put it on a channel, and it just stays on that channel until after you've put down your stuff and you're fixing
fucking
dinner.
Electric babysitter.
Right, and
that's what's killed our fucking society.
I used to fall asleep to television.
Dude, I'll tell you what.
Hold
I
on.
have wasted a day.
Major, hold on. We will go back
something.
to television and its effects on society in a second, but I want to hear the captain finish the story here.
So the biggest change that I made was just going, okay, I'm no longer going to allow myself to be fed information.
Right.
I'm going to decide that I want some information, and then I'm going to go find it, because now I have the ability to with the internet. So maybe the thing that is waking people up is just the further growings of the network effect.
Right.
People who are A, naturally curious, and B, choose to feed themselves information.
Right.
They choose to go hunt it and seek it out instead of allowing it to be fed to them. The people who don't wake up are the ones who are just sort of staring at the television, being fed whatever, watching Fox News or watching CNN or whatever their choice of network is. And I guess I know stuff now, instead of going out and finding it for themselves.
Right, and it seems to me that one leads to the other. Like, if you're the person who wants to go search out the unknown, then you are also the person who will not just sit there and be fed the thing. And the thing about the unknown is, I know two things about the unknown for sure. Number one, it's fucking dangerous. Because things you don't know can absolutely kill you.
Yep.
Like they say, what they don't know won't hurt them. Bullshit. What you don't know is the most harmful thing in your existence. And number two, I will tell you this about the unknown. It has what I need and don't have. Because if I had it, it would be something I knew.
Right.
But if I need it and don't have it, it is somewhere that I don't know.
It's because you haven't been taught it, because you weren't in the right place at the right time.
Well, I mean, there's bound to be something I haven't been taught, right? And that, by definition, will be in the unknown, which is dangerous.
And keep in mind, there are things still unknown to man. Like, man is not
true.
like, there's things man hasn't discovered yet, hasn't figured out, hasn't found out.
There are so many things that have been lost to man because of the atrocities that have been committed against natives, plants, fucking reprocreation, any of them. Give me a dozen subjects, I'll roll.
Yeah, we definitely haven't
head.
held on to everything that we used to have. A lot's been forgotten. But you were saying?
No, dude, I used to have a medical dictionary that was 6 inches thick, maybe 5 inches thick, printed on the finest, thinnest rice paper.
Yeah, but did you know how to use it?
Had all the medicinal properties of plants, Indians. This thing was printed.
I do know what he's talking about. I've seen these like old medical dictionaries. Like they would include like, okay, here's how you mix the medicine for this ailment.
Yeah, I helped a relative pass medical terminology.
Herbology to put in your grinder and bang. But somebody, when people fucking like shit more than I do, and I got broke into and I got stolen. This is my ex-wife. I'm pretty sure did this. But I mean, there's hell to pay all along the rocky road of life.
There is hell to pay all along the rocky road of life.
Hell to pay. Is that a hairpiece that's on fire?
No, I never had a hairpiece. I've had a fur piece.
But if you had a hairpiece, would it be a hell to pay?
I heard if you have hairpiece, it doesn't go away.
No, like I said, I've traveled for
hairpiece.
I've heard a lot about hairpiece, but nothing about hair war.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Well, now you want to talk about Stetson hats and beavers and such. You know what a 4 beaver hat is?
What did you say?
A 4 water hat?
A 4 beaver hat.
A 4 beaver hat.
Hats came into popularity in the 1800s. Little rodent bastards.
The hat made out of 4 beavers?
I have legitimately seen a beaver top hat, and I actually get it. Like, those are amazing. They're beautiful. I mean, like, you wouldn't want to, bring a species close to extinction in order to get one. But, man, those are really amazing hats. They really were.
Coming up on Beard Talk Live a bit later, the captain tells us about beaver basketball. If he remembers. Anyway, go ahead.
That sounds like something I can't dunk.
Beaver hat?
Okay,
What?
so
Four
I
beaver
gotta
hat?
know. I have an ancient 4-beaver Stetson that was my father's, and on it is I don't know if you guys have probably watched some cowboy movies and such. Remember the old cavalry bobs? The road
Yeah.
on the front of the hat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my great grandfather was in the Spanish American War, and I got his cavalry bobs on it.
Okay.
And she's got so much wear and tear on her. I hate to wear her anymore.
Of course.
But I got remember Benjamin Franklin? I got a turkey button, silver little thing
Okay.
that you put in there. You know how people hang buttons on their hats.
Yep.
So it's a turkey with a cross sword and a musket. And
Okay.
the damn thing is so old it don't read what it used to say on it, I think. But I think it used to say, "Give me liberty" or "Give me death."
Okay.
But if I ever show up out there to meet you all at all these hoorahs in your Quill Pig Mountain, which we actually possess, Michigan has the Porcupine Mountains. But anyway, I will be wearing. You will not fucking be able to not recognize me.
He will be known by his 4-beavered hat.
Hey, Minor Pain. I heard that. I didn't get the hoorah you all got to make you be Minor Pain, but how in the fuck did I? Anyway, you can read.
How in the fuck did you anyway?
Yeah, how the fuck did you anyway?
How in the fuck did I what?
Anyway.
That's what I was wondering.
How did you anyway?
How did I anyway?
Yes.
I think I must have bought something from Amway and misspelled the bill.
That's one way. Amway. Hey, if that's how you anyway.
How did he anyway? By misspelling
I
Amway.
always try to have a cleansing product.
like colon blow?
No, whiskey works pretty
It's
good.
the best cereal ever.
A cleansing product.
Yeah, it is.
It's a way to clean yourself out a little bit.
It'll clean you right out.
Colorado Rooter, that's the name. Just flush your bubbles. Don't flush your troubles down the drain.
Exactly.
You remember the old Cheech and Chong one? Rotten Peter, Rotten Peter, Rotten Peter.
Nope.
Nope.
Sorry.
Can't say I do.
No.
I just lost 4 stoner points in my credibility, so.
Yeah. But,
Well,
nobody will remember.
Don't hold it harder than you.
That's true.
The first concert I went to was Cheech and Chong. I was only 12 years old.
Yeah, people today don't realize that stand-up comedians used to make records, albums, CDs, whatever, right? And sell them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes.
The difference between rock and roll musicians and stand-up comedians, though, is that if you go to a rock and roll show and the band gets up and you spend the whole night going, I hope they play my favorite song. I hope they play my favorite song. I hope they play my favorite song. And it's off the album. And in fact, all the songs are off the album, and they all sound pretty much just like all the songs on the album. And then they get to your favorite song, and you're like, yes, they're playing my favorite song. You're all excited and everything. When you bought a CD or an album or a cassette or an 8-track even from a stand-up comedian way back in the day, and then you went to see them live, if they did a bit off the album, you were disappointed. You did not go there to see them do the bits off the album. You wanted to hear new stuff.
That is opposite.
So I don't, all this to say, I don't know.
Yeah, no, if I see a comedian, if I see someone do stand-up and they tell a joke that I know, that I've heard them tell before, I am very disappointed.
Right. So what's the difference in mentality there?
Where nostalgia. There's no nostalgia for funny.
Dude,
But there is if you go to a Weird Al show.
Let's go back to Jimi Hendrix.
Hmm.
There is no replacement for the power of the tube. Have you ever seen
There's no replacement for the power of the what?
The tube?
The power of the tube. Regular old school amplifiers.
He knows vacuum tubes. Old school amplifiers are built with vacuum tubes. We discussed vacuum tubes a little earlier.
Yeah.
Dude.
Dude.
A motherfucker playing a left-handed guitar upside down and backwards.
And this is the Major Underwater.
Yeah. Did you drop your phone into your cocktail, Major? Because you do sound underwater.
Well, I reckon I dropped it too far from my jawbone again.
Yeah.
More better?
That is mo better, but we didn't hear a goddamn thing you said for the last minute or so.
It's true.
Jimi Hendrix was the master of feedback, and without tubes, with this mechanical shit they're doing now, he could not have performed as he did. Somebody's played a left-handed guitar upside down, or a right-handed guitar upside down.
And backwards.
And backwards, yes, sir.
Yep, he had to string the strings in the opposite order to make it work. And then also, Jimi Hendrix was one of the first ones. The sound, the guitar sound that everybody loves for rock and roll and heavy metal, all that is called distortion. And Jimi Hendrix was an innovator when it comes to distortion, because not only can you get distortion by overdriving your amplifier and the tubes within, but he discovered that you can actually manufacture distortion by taking a razor blade, a fresh new razor blade, pulling the cover off of your amplifier, and putting slits in the paper cones of your speaker to make your sound more distorted.
Wow.
And so this is the origins of distortion, of that guitar sound that everybody attributes to like rock and roll and heavy metal.
Right.
And this is where it came from. Now, people do this stuff now with pedals and other assorted effects, and they build it into the tube section of your amplifier for overdrive and that kind of thing. And you can do different levels of it, so you can get a milder form of overdrive. And then you can get like a really crunchy heavy metal type, chugga-chugga out of your amplifier. So they've really gone to great lengths to build this technology now. But the origins of it were Jimi Hendrix sitting down in front of a speaker with a fucking razor blade.
Huh. Wild. You know, he was the first heavy metal artist. Specifically, he was the first the phrase heavy metal came from the Rolling Stone article on Jimi Hendrix describing his music as like dragging chains of heavy metal.
I was not aware of that, but I'm looking it up now.
Old people trying to remember what the hell the name was.
I see I have no credibility with you. And thus you must consult the magic box.
I must. Because, well, I consider myself a fan of heavy metal, and I would expect me, of all people, to have known that. Yeah. And
especially about Jimi Hendrix?
Yeah.
Well, if I've been misinformed, I will be very salty about it.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to, we're trying to do a show here, too. So.
Yeah, you might not have time to do comprehensive research in the middle of a live show. But, Major, what do you think about the effect of television on society?
The effect of television on society? That was the electric babysitter. Always has been. I don't want to do my job. Turn this thing on.
It still is the electric babysitter, that's for sure.
That was when I was a young warthog.
When I was a young warthog.
Wait, is that just a hog with a bunch of warts?
No, I'm Shrek. I live in a swamp, and I'm big and ugly and green.
Well, better a warthog than a warthog.
Did Major Payne just say he's Shrek and big, ugly, and green?
He did.
Yes, sir, I did. Okay. But I surround myself with good donkeys.
They got a bunch of jackasses around
Republicans?
You, huh?
Or are they Democrats?
Democrats are the jackasses.
Oh, don't be making fun of Eeyore. We're going to play pin the tail on the donkey here tomorrow.
I actually feel sorry for both donkeys and elephants. Because
they're associated with the worst monsters on the planet?
Yeah, like...
No, you got to leave
the fuck are these people
alone, dude. Listen to me. You got to leave the donkeys alone.
That's what I'm saying. I'm on the side of like the animals here. I'm like, the animals should be very upset that they are
No, it's the
symbols.
Fucking jackasses. You don't understand. Jackasses is bred by man. It's the only species that can't fucking breed.
Oh, you're talking mules.
The Democratic Party named themselves for.
Well, you're talking mules, not donkeys.
Water and haul more weight. They were pretty frisky, but they can't fucking reprocreate.
Well, since you mention it, an ass refers to either a donkey or a mule. And if it's a donkey, then it can reprocreate. Whereas mules only under procreate.
I believe Eeyore was a donkey, not a jackass.
Well, it's hard to tell.
Well, all male donkeys are jackasses.
Well, that's fucking interesting. How do you concur that?
Oh, well,
same
so-
way you can concur that all male Democrats are jackasses.
No, so ass refers to a donkey or a mule. A jackass refers to a male of that.
Oh, so it's got to have jack before it's considered
Yeah.
bastard.
This implies that there exists a Jill ass.
It does.
Oh,
It does imply
up
the Jill
tail we
ass.
go.
Well, in the same
Now
way,
we're
like
gonna
a
go tumbling
tomcat.
down the hill with the pail of fucking water, right?
Hmm?
Good God Almighty!
Yeah, I don't know. He's underwater again.
Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water.
Jackass and
Jack
Jill
went down
ass.
and broke his crown.
And Jill came tumbling after.
You know,
Hey,
Jill came down with 250. Oh, what a whore.
Jack got 4 bits.
You got bit 4 times? Poor Jack. Feel sorry
No,
for the
4
guy.
bits. 2 bits was a quarter.
Hey, do you know how to tell a
4 bits.
quarter horse? Because they got 2 bits in their mouth. Hey!
Are we at that point in the program already? It shouldn't be joke time. We're not even halfway through.
It's true.
We're not even getting loopy yet.
I don't know, man. We're talking about Jack and Jill at this point.
Yeah.
Major's getting loopy.
So far, Major's
Well-
dominating the show.
That's true.
Yeah.
I'm taking my show back. All right.
I've been
So
down
since we
the-
brought up the pipeline problem,
Yeah.
one of the issues here. So one of the problems about the pipeline problem. So, okay, lots of people realize this is fucked up. What's going on?
Well, first of all, is it true?
Is what true?
The pipeline problem?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, it absolutely is.
I mean, like, outside of the one guy, I don't know
Oh
of
man,
this
happened
pipeline.
to my best friend. So like back in Denver, I mean, there were no anarchists. You couldn't find them.
Sure.
Like you try to find the most anarchist people you can, you know? You go hang out at punk shows and go to goth clubs, and even they're a bunch of bootlickers. So I had my one friend who was actually relatively anarchist and also kind of schizophrenic. But no, he ended up going through that pipeline without my influence. Like as soon as I was done putting up with his ass, he turns all Nazi on me, which he was always kind of headed there anyway. But it still illustrates the point that like the one anarchist I could find ended up being alt-right.
Okay, what I'm saying is 2 people do not make a pipeline,
Well,
right? The one guy and then the other guy. So, like, what evidence is there of this pipeline?
well, there's really not that many of us in the first place.
Okay.
So and there's also not that many.
Because, like, there's
There's
probably...
also not that many people that we can document going to the dark side of Nazism.
I probably know more people who've come to libertarianism and then, like, left and went back to whatever the hell they were doing before than I know who came to libertarianism and then went to fucking Nazism. Right?
I actually don't know, like, I can't think of any former libertarians that I know. Like, personally.
Well, okay. Let me just say I know folks that have moved for the freedom movement and then moved away,
Yeah.
right? And are no longer part of the freedom movement here in New Hampshire, at least.
Well, I mean, like, I've definitely heard about people that, for example, they joined the libertarian movement. They ended up in a position of political power. And then they went, ooh, power.
Right, right.
But I could get done the things I want to get done, whether anyone likes me to do them or not.
Only further illustrating our the recurring theme, which is power corrupts.
Well, and one of the issues is that, like, both the Democrats and the Republicans do seem to be headed in the same general direction for society.
Yeah.
And that is a really fucking awful direction.
Yeah.
It is absolutely authoritarian. Okay, so if you don't want to go in that direction, what do you do? All right, well, there's basically 2 kinds of people that don't want to go in that direction. And that's Nazis who do want to go into an authoritarian direction, but a different authoritarian direction.
Their authoritarian direction.
Right.
Yeah.
And they tend to be very culturally conservative. Like, their issue is not that you're, using a monopoly on the initiation of force. Their problem is that you're not using that monopoly on the initiation of force to maintain our society and its cultural traditions.
Right.
Or the other, possibility is that you don't want to use force on anyone because it doesn't go well, like to initiate force for any purpose.
And that's...
Can I bump in right quick on the whole Nazi thing?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I have on my arm a tattoo, reverse influx of the swastika. That was an Apache peace sign. Hitler stole everything he could. He took everything Jesus said and put it in the mirror and made it backwards. Quick, that's the best I can give you, that whole damn Reich.
Well, it's a weird thing because, like, officially it was a Christian organization, but if you actually get down to what the people in power believed, they were a bunch of occultists.
Even the Apaches have the reverse swastika. That's a peace sign.
Yeah, I mean, the swastika, both forward and backward, is a truly ancient sign. Yeah. I mean, it is a simple geometrical figure. I mean, if you combine the idea of spiral with the idea of square,
right,
that's what you get.
Right.
So, especially if you're trying to depict something that moves in an organic way, but also in an orderly fashion. Like, the order will get you right angles, because right angles are easy to stack and easy to think about. And the organic movement will give you a spiral, because everything that is living lives in a spiral. I mean, time itself moves around in a circle, but it moves forward. So if it moves forward, but also in a circle, then it's a spiral.
That's true. But moving away from the Nazism thing for a minute, because I wanted to continue talking about what wakes people up, right? And so my theory is curiosity plus network effect. That's my theory. I've met a whole bunch of libertarians since I've been in New Hampshire, particularly of the freedom movement variety, whether they're free staters or whether they just moved here for the larger freedom migration, that kind of a thing. It's different than I expected. It's a different, like, everybody is individually unique, and it sounds like a cliche thing to say because of course everybody's individually, but no, like, this is even more so than any other sort of group of people I've been around. Like, I can't tell you how unique everybody is. It's just, you have to experience it. But
yeah, that's one thing. So, like, in most groups, I will see repetitions of a pattern.
Right.
They won't be exact repetitions.
Right.
But they will be like, oh, this person is really similar to this person, and that happens a lot in most social groups.
Right.
Whereas I would be hard pressed to point at two people in the New Hampshire libertarian movement that I've met that are particularly similar to each other.
Right. And so is that another part of it, that uniquely individual, right? One who, sort of marches to their own drummer, right? Yeah, marches to their own drummer, right? That kind of a thing, I think, probably plays a large part, at least the people who are waking up now. I think it's entirely possible for more people to wake up. It's just a matter of education and time.
Well, I think that individual uniqueness exists as a potential in the heart of everyone, in the way that an oak tree exists as the potential in the heart of an acorn. But the question is whether that comes out or not.
Yeah.
Can I delve into antiquity as you bring up the oak tree?
Yeah, you're welcome to.
I don't know. Can you?
The indigenous people of this planet, the Delawares, the Mohawks, up here in northern Michigan, we have the big turtle. That's Mackinac Island. The Mohicans were tattooed with a blue turtle, which came from a very precious sea urchin, which has disappeared. And the Jewish appreciated this thing too. It's a very rare mussel. a very rare dye. But anyway, so yeah, the big turtle in fresh water. You can't drink oil, dude.
Wow.
Maybe.
Wow, no,
Yeah.
I was following right up until you say you can't drink oil. No. Like, so he's skipping pieces,
He is.
but I'm still following.
But also,
so,
I think he told this story last week as well about the
Oh,
big
that could be.
turtle.
that
I
could be.
remember him mentioning Mackinac
No,
Island.
I don't.
Now,
think I've ever
as far
told
as
you
the
about
Jewish dye thing goes, this is actually
Well,
a
there-
controversy in Jewish culture, is whether or not this particular piece of scripture refers to a particular animal or not.
Oh.
Now, those who say that, oh, well, we literally cannot follow God's commandment because God commanded us to make this dye from this particular animal. And the other side says, no, you gave that animal the name of the dye, and now that animal is extinct. But that doesn't mean that the dye doesn't exist anymore.
Well, thank you. I appreciate being rode hard and put up with. Been doing that my whole damn life.
Have you heard that phrase before?
Never.
Oh, this is an important phrase to horse culture, actually.
Nah.
Believe it or not, there's actually an ancient Norse myth about this. So there's this guy who gets to take care of the horse of a god, but he tells him never ever to ride him. And at some point he has to, but he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. So he rides this horse, and then he puts him away. He rides him hard and puts him away wet. And as will happen
And
with
the
a
fucking
horse,
dies of pneumonia.
exactly. So horses are one of the few species on Earth that can sweat, which is part of why they're
Oh.
such amazing runners. In fact, like the word
the
for
sweat to
horse
his tongue.
in pretty much every single language
Yeah.
is the word for runner, including ours.
Huh.
Yeah, the word horse means runner, and that's true in pretty much every single language that has a word for horse. And part of what lets them run is that they sweat so that they can cool their bodies down and keep running. But once they're done running, they're done producing body heat, so they've got all this sweat on them that is going to evaporate, and they'll get hypothermia and die unless you take a brush and sweep that sweat off their body. Which is
Now
why
we're right back
if
to
you
the
ride them hard,
jackass.
you can't put them away wet.
What's,
Right now we're right back to the jackass.
Why? What are you doing with the
Does it-
jackass?
Well, a mule will sit the fuck down. He will refuse to work when he's done.
Yeah.
Mm.
You got to light a fire under his balls to get him back up.
Yep, stubborn as a mule.
Yep. There's the old joke. Let me see if I can.
There's a lot of old jokes, Major.
Well, in my mind, there was a. Oh no, I ain't even gonna tell it because it's making fun of the slaves and such.
All right.
You know?
Well, I will say that
People be wanting to piss on my cornflakes if I tell it.
Well, that's entirely possible.
I hate it when that happens. But I will say that you look like you've been rode hard and put away wet. Means you look pretty gangly and rough and scruffy.
Huh.
Hell, I've been paddling up the creek with a fork all my fucking life, dude.
Is it?
I hear you.
Well, I mean, yeah. Life is not easy for anyone. I used to be of the belief that I had a harder life, particularly growing up in childhood and that kind of thing, than most people, and that may be true. But it depends on your definition of most, right?
Mhm.
But then I encountered many people who had much more difficult lives and childhoods and upbringings than I did, and it did not make me feel better. You would think that learning something like you'd be like, oh, well, I feel a
It
little
just makes
better.
me sad.
No, it just makes me, because like I was already in a place where like, holy fuck, life is not going to be easy for me. I've already been through all this bullshit, and now I
And then
gotta.
you get dipped in the well of crap again.
But then I go and I find people, through various means who've had far worse lives than I had, and I just go, holy fuck, man, the world is fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
But then you come to find out that it's just because of people's whatever it is in people that makes you want to control other people. That's the mental illness that humans suffer from, is the desire to control others, in my opinion. Right?
Hold on. I'm sorry. You made a jump that I didn't follow you on.
Okay.
So I get life is fucking hard.
Yep.
And you find out that for some people it's even harder than you could have imagined.
Right.
Okay. How does that translate into people's desire to control each other?
Well, abuse is that.
Ah, gotcha.
Right. So whether it's child abuse, spousal
if
abuse,
you've been dominated, you want to dominate.
Or to
Bang.
be dominated
Right
again.
there.
right. And so it's that whatever that is, that desire to control other people, to think that you know better or that somebody should obey you. Right. Now, if it's a voluntary situation, like some people's they got kinks or whatever, I'm not going to kink shame anybody. Right, that's voluntary. That's in your bedroom or wherever it is you're, doing these things. That's
voluntary.
Right on.
It's awesome.
Yeah, but it's when it's involuntary, is where the real evil of humankind comes into play. Right, it's abusive situations.
Ever delved into? I know this thing didn't get much press play, but Joe Biden's daughter put out a book on how she had to shower with him for like 15 years or some fucking thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, this pedophile Pete, he's called on his own boy's laptop.
Yep.
Jesus Christ. Who in the fuck are leading us? Give me a good God.
I will say
really
this, though. Well, I mean, I will say this. As pissed as you are at this guy right now, think about this for a second. Can you imagine what it's like? He had to find out through the news that his own son has him in his phone as Pedo Peter. Now, apart from the fact that he, clearly touches young girls in ways that make them very uncomfortable.
Oh, yeah.
Apart from that, man, that has to hurt. Like, if I found out my own son had a name like that for me in his phone.
Your name's not even Peter. Right?
And I find out from CNN, like, oh, that has got to hurt. So a little bit of schadenfreude there.
At the same time, if there was, and, I see the signs, but if there in fact was some sort of child abuse there, the fact that the man is still alive is amazing, right?
Well, that's definitely true. Anyway.
And that also means that if it was his own children, that they too will have the propensity to commit those same types of abuse.
Oh yeah, it's an infectious disease. Cruelty is an infectious disease that spreads by its own symptoms.
The child will commit the sins of the father, and
not all of the time.
Sometimes it happens in reverse order, and the father will pay for the sins of.
Well, so here's the thing, though. There's a choice there. Right. There's a choice. So, like, my favorite example of this is alcoholics, right? So the children of alcoholics will almost always do one of two things. Either they will be so convinced of the dangers of alcohol that they will stay the fuck away from it, and they will make sure to break that cycle, or they will fall to it themselves. And in the same way, victims of sexual abuse, and this is very, very well documented, victims of sexual abuse almost always either get nymphomania or total asexuality. They tend to go in one direction or the other completely. But, I mean, if you have had your parents, for example, do something cruel to you, you get the choice. You don't get the choice about whether it happened to you, but you do get the choice as to whether you get to pass that on or whether you choose to break that cycle.
Well, I'm going to tell you a tale that I've never told before, especially on the damn radio. You're talking about pedophilia and such. When about 2000, it was a real rough winter. My well was froze up. My ex-wife was living in town, and I had to come in town for water. And my daughter was there, which we went through an ugly divorce, and I had custody of my boy, and she had custody of the girl.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, there was this girlfriend of hers that was staying there. Anyway, I probably sucked up a couple more cocktails than I should have, and I just tweaked her waistband. Just whack, and made a joke about the color of her hair not matching the collar. Right? Well, she went back to her grandma and told her this story. Well, as you know, if you don't have enough money to defend yourself, you are fucked. So
Hold on. I need to clarify your story. So this is your daughter that you like snapped her waistband and
Daughter's friend.
No,
daughter's friend.
It was her daughter's friend, but it wasn't nothing. It was a joke. But anyway, I ended up, and I'm still having to register as a child molester 25 years later. And for a misdemeanor, a fourth degree misdemeanor, in the feds, when I went out west during the fucking Obama administration, when you couldn't fucking buy a job around here, I went out west to build houses and shit for all these old Derek bastards. And, well, I couldn't fucking get a permanent address, and I couldn't register, and I ended up getting hemmed up and thrown into the federal fucking system.
No, you're underwater again, Major.
I ended up getting thrown into the federal system for 8 months because I could not provide an address to register.
Oh, yeah.
As
yeah, they will fuck you if you don't have...
pedophile fucking Pete self.
Yep.
Wow, so if you end up homeless, they will make you not homeless in the wrong way, huh?
Right.
Yeah, you're fucked.
They will give you an address.
Well, I'll tell you. I mean, like, so yeah, you done fucked up there, Major. But you didn't fuck up in the way of a child molester. And I'll tell you, the reason that this system does not make a...
Hang on, Major.
Major, give me a minute, please.
I didn't stick my Peter in nothing. I made a bad damn joke. That's all the fuck I did.
Yep.
And great grandma took offense to it. And I got rode hard and put up wet once again.
Well, I'll tell you, Major, the reason that this system doesn't make a difference between a bad joke and a pedophile is because this system does not want you to identify pedophiles accurately, because this system is run by them. I mean, like, okay, how many people are on the sex offender list because they pissed in a parking lot?
Yeah.
Now, there's a real big difference between peeing in a parking lot and molesting your niece.
Yep.
Kind of different things, but they classify them the same way because the people who are running this system do not want us to have the apparatus to make the differentiation between someone who ran afoul of their mechanical laws or someone who is actually a threat to us.
Well, now we're right back to pedophile Pete. But let me give you a segue in the middle of this tale. When I was originally sentenced, the internet was not even there.
Right.
Okay? So I was not profiled. So, and I was originally sentenced to 10 years of registration. Well, on the 9th year and the 11th month, they sent me a letter saying, oh, we would like you to provide us with information for another 15 years. And this is on a fucking misdemeanor charge.
Yeah.
Wow.
Hey,
dude, I've been rode hard and put up wet my whole fucking life.
Hey, Major.
I ain't telling you shit.
Major, we're going to take a break here. We're about halfway through the show. So thank you for the call, man. We appreciate you. Have a great rest of your night. Major Payne, everybody, with his drunken reveal. It takes balls to admit that kind of thing.
It does.
On a show. So we're going to take a 10-minute break or so. And oops, I think I did a thing wrong. Hang on. I'm just trying to set us up for success here.
I've been set up.
And I'm going to play a little bit of music for y'all while we take the break. just rocking out. The solo kicks in at the appropriate time and gives me an excuse to sort of fade out as we begin the second half.
So what's that song about?
Well, you'd have to listen to it and read the lyrics to like really kind of make your own decision. That's what I love about music, is like you can write lyrics and they can mean one thing to one person, but they mean something completely different to another person, provided, you know, your lyrics aren't like specific. You know what I mean? Like, and even if they are, like, you can write vagaries into it that create you know, the opportunity for people to put their own emotion into it. Because what makes a song important to you? Well, how you feel about it.
Right.
Right? Like, does it groove your soul? Does it make you feel a certain way, or the way you want a song to make you feel? You know? Or maybe it makes you feel the way you didn't want to feel, and that's a song that's uncomfortable for you now.
Well, some songs do make me think, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, that should...
I mean,
Go
so
without saying.
for example, punk rock, not very complex.
Mm-hmm.
Like, by its nature, it's the kind of music that someone who only knows 3 chords and doesn't play them very well can still do. And as long as he puts up a whole minute and a half, we call it a punk song, and that's that. But what that does give you room for is ideas in the lyrics.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, nothing coming out of mainstream music is intellectually challenging.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. There was it was Megadeth that did a video. I think it was for Peace Sells or whatever. And like before the song even kicks in, it's like a kid in the living room, and he changes the channel of the TV from the news to like a Megadeth song on MTV, right? And the dad comes in. He's like, "Hey, put that back. I'm trying to watch the news." And he turns around and he goes, "But Dad, this is the news," right? Because the song "Peace Sells, but who's buying?" Right? A very political song, you know, and for its time, you know, way ahead of the curve, in my opinion. And like, to me, that was the attraction. The attraction was that they weren't writing sappy love songs. And if you love a sappy love song, Far Out Solid and Right On, you know, indulge away and like build your collection of sappy love songs that you love. You know, go right for it. But I don't know, like the lyricism, particularly of heavy metal, is what kept me a fan of theirs for so long. Of Megadeth and then many other metal bands as well. You know, but then as I sort of came out of the fog of statism, some of these songs took on a new meaning to me, right? A meaning they didn't have before. Before I subscribed to the non-aggression principle and to the philosophies of freedom, really. You know, voluntary interaction for everybody. And like once you apply that consistently to every place in your life, the world looks completely different.
Let me drill down on that.
Okay.
The desire to apply something consistently. Now, I'm pretty sure that some amount of that exists in literally everyone. Because, I mean, like, a toddler wants there to be enough consistency in their world that they can start figuring out how to do shit.
Right.
Because that's the point of being a toddler.
Toddlers will often say, that's not fair. They can definitely point out when something isn't applied consistently.
Right. So, I mean, you often ask the question of, how do we get these ideas out there? How do we get people to love what we love, really? And
or at least understand why we love what we love.
Yeah, close enough.
Right, and allow us to do so.
Which, I mean, like, some part of you has to love it in order to understand someone else loving it in anything more than an intellectual way, right?
Right.
But, like, the desire for consistency seems to be a real turning point. Like, everyone has some amount of this, but you can choose to ignore it. And for some fucking reason, people like you and me chose to stop ignoring our desire for consistency.
Yes. And and that revelation, like that epiphany, I guess, really is what I'm trying to say. That's what it was for me. It was an epiphany. Like, there was a moment, and I don't even remember the moment. I can't tell you what day it was, or was it nighttime, daytime, whatever. I just remember having it when everything clicked. I'm like, oh, fuck. Oh, the anarchists are right. It's the only consistent philosophy of them all. And if that's what you seek to apply, like some things about what Democrats say, okay, that doesn't make sense.
Okay.
But that makes sense. Some things that Republicans say is like, no, that doesn't make. Oh, but that does make sense. You might agree with some of their positions on stuff, but never all of it, because they're inconsistent. But when you start thinking about what the world might look like if we just gave each individual all of the power, right?
Right.
People really want to be fair, right? You want a fair world where you get a fair shake and a fair shot, just the exact same shot as everybody else. Great. Make sure that every individual has the same amount of power.
Well, that's exactly how they sell democracy, isn't it? That you want to give the power to the people. And the problem throughout time has been all of these systems that didn't give the power to the people where it rightfully belonged. And all of that is true. Like, deeply, profoundly true. That's why it sells.
But the thing is, if you actually give power to the people, then the structure that you sort of gave them that power disappears. Once you've given the power to all of the people, and you say, dear people, each of you individually has all of the power that we have ever had as an organization. Each of you individually now has that in an equal amount. Go forth and live your life. That should be the end of government right there. Right? If people would actually give the power back to themselves, which is all they have to do, this would all be over. This fucking nightmare known as statism would be fucking over. So, sorry, I went on a rant there, but I just want to mention that I think, like, one of the reasons that I'm here was because I detected an opportunity to affect freedom in some way, for the better, or at least, like, the epiphany, the revelation was such that I'm like, oh my God, I got to scream this at the mountaintops, right? You know, I got to climb mountains and be like, hey, everybody, listen, I've had this epiphany. And then, like, nobody cared, right? You know, you're shouting it at the mountaintops, and then, like, nobody cared. They're like, yeah, whatever. You know, we're still over here doing our thing. You know, you go over there, Mr. Crazy Captain, you know, kind of a thing. So the opportunity to do something about it, I think, is something that you and I share. You know, that we're here amongst these people. We detect an opportunity to do something about it.
Right. I was going to say, well, the opportunity to do something about it is something you and I and literally everyone else share, which is new. Like, really new. Like, we've never actually had something we could do about the dominant empire of the planet Earth. It's just never been a real possibility. Yeah. Like, we knew that it was important to educate ourselves. We knew that it was important to talk to each other about this. Like, we could detect that since all of this energy and attention was being given to silencing us and to separating us, we could figure out, okay, well, then it must be important that we keep talking to each other.
Yeah.
We didn't know why, but we could tell they wouldn't be concerned with it if it wasn't a concern.
Yeah.
They wouldn't feel threatened by it unless there is some part of this that is actually a threat to them.
Right. Yeah.
So we kept talking about it. We kept learning about it, but there wasn't anything to do. And it's really disheartening when the only thing you can do is keep saying things.
Right.
And now there is. And what there is to do about this is form your own currency.
It's the Buckminster quote, right? You don't fight the existing reality. You don't change things by fighting the existing reality. Instead, build a better version that outcompetes the existing version.
You know what absolutely burns my fucking scrot about that? You have to play the game that is being played in order to start playing the game that replaces it.
Well, that's a load.
So in order to create Bitcoin, he had to have a fucking computer, didn't he?
You do have to use the tools at your disposal to innovate, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in order to have a computer, you have to play the current game. You have to engage in the economy as it is, with its fiat US dollar basis and all of its unnecessary and brutal regulations. You have to play the game as it is in order to play the game as it will be.
Right.
That is what absolutely bites me about it.
And that's one of the reasons, like, I've been doing things around here that just because I don't know, because it's a challenge, right? Like, can you spend nothing but Bitcoin for an entire week here in Keene, New Hampshire? Like, can you actually do that? Like, it's not without its challenges. I ended up going into like a burger place and buying 2 fruit juices, and that's it, because I was out of mixer for my cocktails, right? You know, so like I couldn't go to just like a regular ass grocery store at the time I did this and like, you know, here's some Bitcoin, thanks for the groceries. That just, you know, now there's like, we're in the age of intermediaries, right? There's a bunch of middlemen that are, you know, transducing dollars into crypto in a variety of formats, right? Sometimes they give you a credit card. Sometimes it's linked up to your existing payment systems.
I was going to ask if that counted
Venmo,
in the challenge.
all that kind of
like,
stuff.
are you allowed to use crypto to use dollars, or
so
because those are two different challenges? Both are possible.
My challenge was without the intermediary. So like it was really literally people who had their POS set up to accept crypto.
Gotcha.
Those are the places that I went to. So,
point of sale.
Point of sale, yes, POS. Not
Sorry, I'm allergic to acronyms.
That's fine.
If I use one, like,
I will spit them out
worry.
without explaining from time to time. So,
so you weren't allowing yourself to use the intermediary of the U.S. dollar,
right? One of the attractions to me of Keene, New Hampshire, was the amount of businesses here, for the size of town that it is, that accept cryptocurrency, right? Whereas I lived in Seattle, Washington, supposedly one of the technology hubs of the world.
Right.
Right. But yet there was no place I could spend my crypto. I get here and I'm like, wait, can I do this for a week? Right. And I did it for a week, man. You know, I ate at the restaurants that accepted the crypto. I would order, you know, a bit of it to go, you know, for the next day so that I didn't have to go somewhere and buy something like, well, you know, at my house or whatever. I visited all the places, a couple of convenience stores, you know, the pizza place, right? You know,
well, that's one way to disprove the criticism that you can't spend it anywhere.
I did it, and I did it it was a challenge. It really was. I had to be very creative to do it. But you mentioned something earlier about...
you're basically trying to live in the future while you're actually in the present.
Right. And I think I even made a post about it at some point on some social media that I was like, you know what? I'm living in the fucking future.
Yes.
Right? Because I can do this right here, right now. This is, you know, if I'm the beta test, you know, check. Can be done.
Yeah.
Right? Is it difficult? Yep.
Oh, it turns out there's only a little amount of the future that exists currently in the present.
Yeah.
But holy shit, there's a part of the future that exists in the present, and there's so much of it that you cannot die and live entirely inside the future. That's amazing.
Yeah, and I did sort of feel sort of pioneer-esque, you know, while doing the thing, because I was like, you know, I wonder how many people have done this before.
Well, it's weird because, like,
you know?
Well, and this is something that I have commented on countless times throughout the decades. But what's weird about the time we're in is that people like us don't have an easy frontier to go to. I mean, the American West was the last frontier.
Yeah.
Until the next frontier.
Well, outer
we're
space,
not there
of
yet.
And
well,
no, we're not. Yeah.
Outer space will maybe be the last frontier. Honestly, I think we'll find another one. It'll be like interdimensional, and then when we figured that one out, there'll be another one. There's always a new last frontier. Sure. But none of these frontiers are accessible. until now, when the first parts of the digital frontier are becoming accessible.
Yes, they are, and I'm not only am I watching it, right, by paying attention to some news sites and participating in. There's a thing I refer to here as the cryptocurrency economy, right, and it's just a bunch of hard-headed people who believe in crypto, who are literally using it to exchange with each other, and it's working. It's working. Not only is it working, it's working pretty well. We've got to have a couple of sort of go-to people. There's some technicians in the community, if you will, who, oh, dude, I tried to do this transaction on my wallet, blah, 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 blah. And they'll be like, okay, look here, first of all, update your thing, right? Blah, blah, and they'll sort of tech support, if you will, within the community for handling problems that you might have with your transactions. But it's been less problems than most people have with their cable television.
Right.
That's how well it's working. Right. The technical issues are solvable. They're usually easily overcome unless you're into some niche coin and but if you're just rocking BCH, BTC, Ethereum,
Monero runs into problems because it's real fucking complicated.
Yeah. What's the other one? Is it Dash? That's on the
Dash is sort of half and half.
Yeah.
Dash is I have never run into an issue with Dash, but I've also never expected any kind of privacy.
Yeah.
And apparently at one point it was Darkcoin, and they had a situation where you could send it privately, kind of the way that the way the Zcash is right now.
We're getting into the weeds, as one of our producers might say.
It's our show. It's our fucking show. We could get into the weeds. We're getting into particulars. Yes, we are talking about individual cryptocurrencies.
No, what we're talking about is the fact that Keene, New Hampshire has a cryptocurrency economy.
Right.
That's the larger point here, is that
holy fuck, there's a place in meat space.
It exists. I'm in it. Here I am. Here we are. Our listeners, here we are. We're here. This thing exists.
Well,
is it great? No. Can you fulfill everything that you ever wanted to buy? No. Do you have to jump through extra hoops from time to time to get your way? Yes. But it's possible, and it's here.
And to me, what's bigger than that is that we negotiated our own value. And people are just not used to negotiating value.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people, roughly 90+%, are not getting paid what they're worth because they do not want to have a conversation about what they're worth.
Right.
And I can't fucking blame them. It's rough. It's scary as all hell. Because if you have that conversation wrong, it ends in war. But the conversation has never been easier.
Yeah.
And here we are, literally negotiating how we transact value.
Right.
And that's going to be the skill.
My favorite part of cryptocurrency, people ask me, how come you're so into cryptocurrency? People who know me are like, dude, yeah, you can add, subtract, multiply, and divide with the best of them, but you're not a mathematician. And I'm like, no, I sure as fuck ain't. Me and math are like, but thankfully, I have a calculator in my pocket everywhere I go. Unbeknownst to my teachers at the time, who told me I'd never be able to have a calculator and carry it with me in my pocket wherever I go.
Here's something fun. Ours is the last generation that get fed that shit.
Yeah, that's true. End of an era. But it's the permissionless part.
Yes.
That's my favorite part. Permissionless.
Right.
It didn't go around to governments and authorities and go, dear sir, I wish to form an organization with which to release this thing that we call cryptocurrency, and may we please buy a license and have your... No. Satoshi Nakamoto dumped that shit on the internet. Just literally,
and the world.
The term airdrop, if it doesn't apply to Bitcoin, I don't know what it applies to.
Okay. Hold on. Manna from heaven was an airdrop.
dude, I'm serious.
Hey, Jesus is going to return on the cloud, right?
The most important airdrop in cryptocurrency's history
Has been Bitcoin.
was Bitcoin. Satoshi Nakamoto's white paper specifically, and his release of the Bitcoin code into the wild.
Cryptocurrency itself is an airdrop. How fucking wild is that?
Pretty sweet, huh? I mean, if it doesn't describe like how the advent of Bitcoin, I don't know what other term would.
So I was out at a bar in New Hampshire,
All right.
and I was talking to this a couple of people from Germany who are out figuring out what cryptocurrency is to make a podcast about it.
Okay.
And at some point, she's like, "Well, why are you so certain about this?"
Okay.
And it's like a mind-blowing and heartbreaking thing to be like, "Oh, sweetie, how do I explain this?" Okay. You ever see 2001: A Space Odyssey? You know how there's this fucking obelisk in the middle of everything? Why did you know that was different than the other rocks? Well, you see.
Yeah, right. It is difficult to explain how cryptocurrency works.
Well, how do you know that it's going to work? Because holy shit, we just got like Prometheus gave fire to humans and was punished with eternally getting his liver eaten. And that is the kind of situation that we're in right now. Like, this is so much of a leap forward that I actually don't believe in aliens in the normal sense of the word at all. But I totally grok why people believe that this is alien technology. Like, it's beautiful.
But it's no more alien technology than the internet.
Right.
It's no more alien technology than television.
Right.
Right. Before it's no more.
And one of my favorite book series as a kid, and really even now, it included the idea that the television itself was alien technology that existed to keep us slowed down.
Well, yeah. Broadcast is like you unify the slaves.
Yeah.
Right. And that's been done. Like literally, like if that was the purpose of television, mission successful, I'd say. Right? Television has been the major source of programming for everybody on planet Earth.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean that in like the way that...
On so many levels.
Well, but the way I really mean it is that you have been brainwashed by your television. I was brainwashed by my television.
The way that we perceive reality was largely frameworked by television.
Yeah.
And we also structured our lives around when shows were.
Yeah.
Which, man, as a child, I thought that was such a great idea. Ooh, The Simpsons is having a special.
Right, yeah.
My parents are like, don't structure your life around when shows are. We don't do that.
No, like, we largely structured our lives around the television because, oh man, it's Friday night. The A-Team is on.
Oh.
Be to my house by 7 and don't be late.
TGIF. It's TGIF Friday. Don't you know it's time to... The one time where we can watch a bunch of television because it's all family friendly, right?
I look back on it now and I go, boy, what a sucker I was. But also, like, how obvious is it that that's what they were trying to do, is just control everybody.
And that's the thing.
Pretty fucking
They
obvious.
were broadcasting programming.
Right.
And for hundreds of years, broadcasting has been how we get our news.
Right.
And for decades and decades and decades, programming has been how they do broadcasts. And I really do believe that I was born just in time to see the pinnacle of socialized control. Because when the television was the ultimate source of news, was the peak of programming. It was the very top of spoon-feeding everyone information about reality.
And it still attempts to, right? Like the baby boomers for sure are all completely addicted to television. Very few of them get or seek their own information out using the internet.
Some of them literally don't believe weather information unless it comes from a TV.
A certain person on their TV, right? I only get my weather from like Greg Donovan of W blah blah blah.
Right.
Whatever station they're watching, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's exactly it's the vulnerability in the system, to, use programming jargon for a second, that exists in the human emotional context. Like, you should have an access point to human beings that you regularly interact with. You should give human beings that you choose to interact with regularly access to your perception of reality. So when they make this fake version of a human being that you regularly choose to interact with, that's how they hack our system. So here's Greg with the weather.
I hope that more people wake up. I really do. I mean, that's one of the reasons we're doing this show. It's one of the reasons we do the other show. If not the reason. I did not have access to anything like what we're doing here on Beard Talk Live or Free Talk Live or anything with the LRN, any of those podcasts, right? I didn't have access to this information. This is all new information for me over the last decade or so, right? But I'm 50, so for most of my life, didn't have access to this information. And all of a sudden, this tsunami of fucking philosophy comes rolling through the fucking internet one day. And I caught wind of it, and I just started hooked into it and grabbed on. I'm like, whoa, this shit's fucking awesome. And also, like, it answered so many fucking questions for me, right? Like this whole illusion, everybody else, like, they think government has to run the economy. Like, well, what is the economy? The economy is people trading. Oh, you mean with each other? Yes. So then why does the government need to run that? I don't know, right? Nobody can explain why the government needs to run the economy. It doesn't.
But they know it will all go to shit if they don't.
No, it won't.
The government must run it, or societal order will break down.
Government is unnecessary.
The only reason that you're not stabbing me in the throat right now is because someone in a uniform will put you in a cage if you do.
It's unnecessary.
So, I'm going to try and work through this idea with you for a second.
Right.
So, what they have fed us is actually true if every single human being is a fucking sociopath. So if every single human being were a total and complete sociopath, then it would only be the fact that they might get arrested that keeps them from, say, stabbing me when they feel like it.
Yeah, I don't buy that. I have stabbed as many people as I have wanted to for my whole life, and that amount of people is zero.
Well, I envy you both of those things.
I mean, there's been times when I'm like, man, I think somebody needs to get stabbed, right? But I've never actually done any stabbing, right? Sometimes you see somebody do a thing, you're out in public, like, it might even be somebody you don't even know, and you're like, wow, that guy's lucky he didn't get stabbed right there. Like,
man, I have no idea what your lived experience is like, because, for example, when I see politicians, I really want to stab them.
Feel a little Irish.
I mean, there are exceptions, surprisingly enough, especially representatives in New Hampshire, because there's like 400 of them, so a bunch of them are actually human beings. But Don Baldock, for example.
I don't know.
So he's the Republican option for Senate.
Okay.
And he's a complete warmonger.
No. So he's really a politician.
Yeah. Yeah. So he is such a warmonger that his Democratic opponent is not more of a warmonger than him. And now I have to pick. Am I going to vote for the libertarian candidate I like voting for? Or am I going to vote for the Democratic candidate because I'm more likely to survive the outcome?
This is why I don't vote. This is why, because there's no reason for me to make that decision. There's no reason.
No, there really is.
No.
There is a really good reason for you to make that decision.
Look, they're both going to do their brand of fucking tyranny, right? Because you can't change the system from the inside. You can have an effect on it, but you're not going to change it, right? Hopefully you can change it enough to where, like, you know, we can be like, okay, we're out of here. Secession, right?
So
I love the idea of secession.
So I think that's one of the trickery points about how to behave in civilization.
Yeah.
So you learn that you should become richer, right? Become more wealthy. But there's really a cutoff point as far as happiness, and this is specifically documented.
Cutoff point for what?
So as you get richer and richer, you will get happier and happier until a specific point. And every bit of wealth past that point, you get less and less happy.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Okay, but that's what the research says.
I must not have reached that point yet.
Right. Well, here's what it is. When you don't have to worry about anything. That's the point.
Don't have to, or like sometimes I don't worry about things because I just don't want to, right? Like this particular Senate race, I'm like, I don't want to worry about that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna.
And you don't have to
continue living my life, and I'm not gonna. I don't want to become a guy who's like a political nerd, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to become that guy. That's not me. I don't want to compare, one. It's like, no, like, play stupid games, win stupid prizes, right? Like, the only winning move is not to play, in my opinion. And so I don't, and that's my choice, right? And hopefully, if you're a voluntarist, not you specifically, anybody listening is a voluntarist, hopefully you're like, that's cool, he can have his opinion, and, that's fine.
Well, one of the most beautiful moments I ever experienced in public school was seeing the phrase, I disagree with what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm at with that.
Yeah.
I think you're wrong.
I'm there too.
I think you are dangerously mistaken about that. And yet, I want more than anything for you to explore that. I want you to be allowed to explore that without a boot on your neck.
Right.
And what a wacky scenario this is.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll tell you one thing for sure about the trolley problem. The problem is the person who set up the trolley. Yeah.
Well, the trolley, there'd be no trolley problem.
Exactly.
Yeah. How do you solve all of the problems of government?
By solving government.
By not having one.
That's the solution.
If you don't have one, you have none of the problems. And it's like really that simple.
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine if mankind actually got together and was like, hey, this is how we all want to interact with each other from now on? Do you think they'd come up with what they have today? No, they fucking wouldn't. Everybody would look. If somebody came to you today and was like,
I've got a great idea.
Yeah, let's forcibly impose our will upon a population, extracting wealth from them, just a percentage so that they still, sort of go about their lives. And, if they get out of line, we'll have to kill some of them. And in order to keep the game going, we're going to have to murder some people in some other villages. And that's okay because we'll use some of the citizens to do that.
Well,
would you be like, that sounds like a great idea. Let's do that, Captain.
Well, I'll tell you what would help. If they said, hey, instead of having this one particular person who has all of the power,
yeah.
Instead of that, let's exactly what you described. What's the percentage that's going to go, wait a second, couldn't we do neither of those?
Yeah. And that's, I guess, the thing that I've learned from the aforementioned tsunami of philosophy that I caught wind of in the more sort of mid section of the age of the internet that we've had thus far. What I caught wind of was, I don't know, just the ability to think it through, and ask the question, well, what if we just didn't do that?
Well,
when it comes to the organization known as government, like, oh my God, if you look at the outcome of having an organization known as government, if you look at what is its GDP, right? It's murder, it's theft, and that's really about it, right? Murder and theft.
What does it really export?
Murder and theft.
Murder and theft.
It's what it does.
And intimidation.
Well, okay, coercion.
Yeah.
Right, so threats.
Man, mind games
really good at
like
threats.
you wouldn't believe.
Yeah. Really good at threats.
Oh, yeah.
And it's greedy as fuck.
The best threats.
Right.
The best.
You take any of the sins and apply it to government, it's guilty of all of them. Right?
And it exports.
Yes. So then, my biggest problem with it is that it exists in violation of consent.
Yeah.
That makes it a rapist.
Yes.
Might be strong words, but I think they're applicable.
The difference between government and charity is rape. So,
yeah.
So, a government helps the poor by murdering children.
Right. Yeah. And stealing from people.
Right.
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 If it does even, in fact, help the poor.
No, it does. It does.
Maybe.
I mean, it hurts them much more than it helps them. Of course.
So it exists.
How are they supposed to keep requiring our help?
Once I had
What
the epiphany.
do you have as a use from my crutch if I don't break your leg?
Yeah. Once I had the epiphany that it violates consent, I was like, motherfucker, the whole goddamn thing's illegitimate. The whole goddamn thing. And so then you just have to stew on that for, I don't know, a week or something. Like, that's not an epiphany that, like, came to me lightly, right? I didn't just one day start saying that.
That's the problem.
I looked at the evidence and went,
why did you
fuck.
decide to stew on that? That's the question.
I was just in shock.
Because you could have, like, pretended you didn't know that.
No, I was just in shock. I'm like, holy fuck. Is that really true? Fuck, it really is. Like, I just had to, like, sit with the idea that it was really true.
So why didn't you go, that can't be true?
Because I saw the evidence and it was overwhelming.
You could have ignored it.
I mean, I could have chosen not to go find the evidence. Yes, that's true. But I don't know that I could have found the evidence, had the epiphany, and then been like, no, I didn't.
You could have gone, nah, that's a conspiracy theory.
No.
You could have dismissed it.
Okay.
Why didn't you?
Because it wasn't true. I'd be lying if I said it wasn't true. In my assessment, right? I'm trusting myself to make a judgment based on the evidence.
Well, I'm sure that there is something
instead of
that is
what was
true
what I was
you are
programmed to
dismissing.
believe. Instead of what I was programmed to believe, right? So it did go counter to my programming, yes.
Well, okay. I'm sure that there is something that you are dismissing that is true.
I'm sure there's lots of things I'm dismissing that are true.
Right. So why did you choose not to dismiss that?
I don't think that was a choice.
Why
That's
did
not
it
a choice
stick
that
in
went
your
through my
craw?
mind. It's not a choice that I felt I had no choice but to believe it. Right? Because there it was. It was like, so I'm like, oh my fucking God. How have I not seen? Do you remember there used to be these like hidden picture things that you'd get in books, and you'd have to stare at it and stare at it and stare at it, and if you stared at it long enough, you would finally see a picture revealed to you that was even in like 3D or whatever if you stared at the thing the right way? That's how I felt with this epiphany. I saw the evidence and I went, oh fuck, I see the big picture now. Oh, the big picture is that, oh, it's just like any other system, right? Because I've been in technology. If you look at the output, you figure out what the system was designed to do, right? Systems don't continue operating for hundreds of years because they're faulty, right?
Right.
The system is working exactly as it has been engineered to work. It's just that we've all been programmed to think that it's operating in some sort of a charitable way, and it's not. It might give a little charity here and there just to make you think it. But if you look at the big picture again...
Well, and anyone who's seen a CSI show knows that you leave evidence behind whenever you do a thing. So if the output is this little doll that has a seam on this crease, the reason that there's a seam there is because of part of the process. And you can reverse engineer part of the process because here's a clear seam. So, there must have been a thing that made that. So if what this is putting out is ignorance, slavery, stupidity, misery, well, some portion of this is the product, and some portion of this is the byproduct.
But we should be able to try to have, or just not do that, to have...
Right.
Let's just not have that type of organization. It's the only organization on planet Earth that violates consent. Every other organization type does not violate consent.
So this is kind of my personal version of Spooner's either or.
Okay.
So Spooner said either it didn't stop this or it made it happen.
Right.
So my either human misery is a necessary byproduct of this system, or human misery is what this system is designed to create. In either case, we have a moral imperative to destroy it.
Right, because just as an organization that violates consent, it doesn't deserve to exist.
And it is in an evolutionary circumstance. It has to keep recreating itself, and it has to keep adapting to an environment. And the thing is, you get better and better at that. So if this is designed to create human misery, or if creating human misery is simply a necessary component of it, either way, it's going to get better and better at it.
And it has too.
It sure has.
A lot of people think that, oh, well, the United States is so young. Maybe. Right? Maybe in number of years, but in just the sheer amount of time that it took to go from nothing to the largest empire the world has ever seen. Like a couple hundred years. That's pretty fucking fast.
Yes,
right?
It is.
Considering how old, well, all the other countries are.
Sure fucking is.
Right? You know, I mean, England is ancient as fuck, right? Spain.
So
right?
Either there's something that's making this happen, or this just happens. Either way, we got to do the same thing because, okay, it only took a couple centuries for us to, 250 years, give or take, for us to get here? Okay, so either there is something much older and bigger making that happen, or things just happen faster. Either way, our response is the same.
That's true. And hopefully with the speed and the pickup in the curve of technology, right, we're how many generations into the internet now? 2, 3? What do you consider a generation? 10, 15 years?
I usually think of 20.
Okay, so we're at least a couple generations in. Like, kids are growing up and becoming adults who have never not known the internet.
Well, there's going to be kids that have never not known cryptocurrency.
Right. By the time it's time for parents to teach those children, like, what a bank account is and how to balance your checkbook, like, they're going to be, why do I need any of that? I've got crypto.
Right. Well,
and they're right. And they're right.
It's one of those where, like, I remember working out the flow chart for how to deal with an app, right? Yeah. And I figured that out because Mostly because people older than me said, hey, I don't know how to work this. Can you work it?
No.
And I don't know the answer to that question. I have to try to find out whether I can work it or not.
Right.
So I developed the flow chart about, like, you know, looking for the, like, let's see, file, system, edit. Like, there's a flow chart for figuring out a new app,
Sure.
right? And that was kind of obvious from the get-go. There's going to be a flow chart for this generation in working with cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
That they probably won't even be able to articulate until much later,
Right.
that I literally can't even imagine. That's amazing.
And it's moving fast, man. It is moving fast.
The power that the next generation is going to have in terms of working with value itself is like nothing I could have imagined.
And the opportunity to replace bureaucracy and even give choice in in a menu style of options for the things you do currently rely upon government to do, because they claim some monopolies on some things,
Mm-hmm.
like wastewater,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, government, we will run the sewers. Like, that's a weird
and
one.
only I shall handle your pee-pee poo-poo.
Yeah, for some reason they want to know.
None other shall put their hands into your defecation.
Yeah, but they want your hands in it, or their hands in it.
And
Sorry.
there's a loan.
And right, but that's creepy. Right?
No other conveyance for your urine will be
Now,
acceptable.
that's not necessarily true. That's in cities and town, or cities specifically. In rural areas, like, a lot of folks have septic systems.
Okay,
and so,
in rural areas, the only difference is no one's fucking looking.
Right.
That's really the difference between, oh, well, I went over to that bush and peed, versus, oh, well, I went over to that bush and peed, and now I'm a sex offender.
yeah,
What's the difference? Well,
the location.
no one was looking.
Right. Yeah.
And also in the city, there's a lot more politicians that are likely to be there. So they really need to hide their sex offenders among a bunch of people who have been claimed to be sex offenders.
Yeah, that's true. What were we talking about right before that? I wanted to get back to a point.
We were talking about that this generation is going to have some
They're gonna have
unbelievable
choice.
opportunities.
Yeah. All of the functions of a bank will be at your disposal.
Right. Yeah, that was one of the things, like with the German people that were that were researching and gathering information for their podcast, is like, how do I know this will work? Well, you see, there's this very specific function
Mm-hmm.
that it takes banks days or weeks to complete.
Yep.
I personally can complete that function with significantly higher security
Yep.
within 10 minutes if I want to do it the expensive and slow way.
Right.
But the expensive and slow way has more security than we have ever had for anything ever.
Yep.
Literally.
Yep.
Nothing has ever been this secure in the history of humankind. So the banks can do this in weeks. If I don't feel like having more security than anything has ever had, then I can do it that quick.
Yeah.
For less than a penny.
And you can do it
100 ways.
anywhere on planet Earth.
Anywhere
near.
on planet Earth.
As long as you got a cell phone and access to Wi-Fi or data plan. Even and that could be satellite, right? I mean, the internet is pervasive now.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of the globe doesn't have internet access, but it's getting smaller every day.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things that very few people see coming is the ascension of Africa. So the financial center has moved in a very specific pattern around the world.
Yeah.
And it looks like that is going to move to China, but it's not. Where that's going is it's finally making the full circle. And when it makes the full circle, it goes literally everywhere. And when it goes literally everywhere, the place that is most changing is the place that was at the bottom.
Okay.
So Africa has the least access to banks on Earth, short of
Right.
Antarctica or the Arctic Circle.
Right.
But they have access to phones. I mean, you can find a flip phone just about anywhere in Africa.
Right. And you don't need what we call physical infrastructure.
Right.
Because you can just airdrop, no pun intended, a solar-powered relay, right, for the cell phone tower, right? Just airdrop one of those into anywhere, right? Really,
really anywhere.
Yeah, a couple guys rappel down some rope, secure it to the ground, right? Point the panels and fire it up and go. So now you've got cell phone towers across Africa,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they will be the first generation to have sort of eliminated ground structure, right?
Mm-hmm.
Infrastructure,
Right.
as far as networking is concerned. Everything
we
will
had to
be
do
wireless.
telegraph wires, and then the
Right.
telegraph wires became telephone wires. Then the telephone wires carried the internet, and I mean, very clunky infrastructure.
Very.
And we were already at the top. America was already at the forefront of technology when it invented telephone wires.
Right.
Whereas with wireless technology, they skip all of that. They just leapfrog the entire process. And that's always been the case with new technologies. The further you are from the monopoly, the more you have to gain from the destruction of monopoly.
Fact.
So right now, the furthest from the banking system is Africa. But
Right.
it has this tremendous population.
It does.
And, I mean, it'll be a minute because right now we have to go through the process of shifting over. So the depression that the entire world's about to be in economically is literally like nothing we've ever seen.
Right.
But what follows it is equally like nothing we've ever seen. And one of the features of that, so getting back to like tangible experiential reality is one of the things that we are going to need to do, because we are in a very abstract world.
Okay.
I mean, for example, for most people, in a practical sense, food comes from the grocery store.
Right.
And very few people have tracked it even a single step beyond that.
For some people, it just shows up at their door.
I mean, one of the things that they train the FBI to look for is if people are gardening. Because if they're gardening, they might be libertarians. And libertarians, as we all know, are domestic terrorists.
And that says a lot about the reality of society today.
Yeah.
That gardening is a thing that they look for.
Yes. Documentedly.
Also,
verifiably.
Also, back to the grocery thing for just a second. Like, some people, they think food comes from the grocery store. Some people get their groceries delivered to their front door. Some people don't ever go shopping. Uber Eats exists. Restaurants exist. Some people never go shop, or very rarely do. Think of all the things you can buy online, Amazon,
Food
right, that kind of thing.
Comes from my fingertips.
Yeah. Oh, you go over to the station and you type in what you want, and it shows up at your door. That's wizardry the likes of which mankind has never seen.
That is disconnection from reality, the likes of which humanity has never survived.
Okay.
And I think that that's one of the things that we're going to desire. I really think that we move too far in one direction, and deeply we sense that.
Yeah.
and we desire to go the other direction. And usually we move a little too far in the other direction, but not as far as we were last time we were in this direction.
Right.
And that's how we go. And right now we are way, way abstract and disconnected from nature and reality. And if you have a garden, you at least know what it's like to see a vegetable grow.
Okay.
So you have more connection to your source of sustenance than anyone who's never seen a vegetable grow.
Right.
I mean, there really is an appreciation that happens that you can't duplicate in any other way.
Yeah. Once you do a thing,
Right.
then yeah.
Right. When you've seen exactly the rate at which snap peas grow,
Yeah.
and then pulled one off and put it into your mouth as fresh as can be.
They're delicious.
Like,
And
number
I don't really
one,
like peas, but yeah.
number one, right?
Sugar snaps fresh off. Yeah. Crispy.
Like-
Maybe a little cold morning, you know.
Yeah.
Chomp chomp.
I mean, it's not my favorite ordinarily, but man, when it's fresh, it's fresh.
Yeah.
Like that. And I mean, sure, I could use complicated scientific terms to describe the enzymes that you are chemically sensing and which nervous structure is sensing. That's not the truth of it. The truth of it is you know exactly what something that is alive tastes like. And you know exactly what it takes in terms of effort and time for food to exist. And you may not know everything about it, but you at least have one point of reference.
I don't know, dude. I think I'm just gonna have a garden, and then my robots are gonna tend to it and do everything for me.
Cool.
No, I don't have these robots yet, but my backyard garden, man. If I had one, I'd be engineering the shit out of that. I don't have one. I buy my produce at the grocery store, but like, if I were growing my own produce, I would have, some sort of a rack system, some sort of a, an aquatic self-watering platform, that's the kind of ship that I would run.
So solar-powered aquaponics?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I honestly believe that that's what we're headed toward.
Yeah.
So, solar-powered aquaponics, which, for the listeners, aquaponics is both plant and animal, both pooping fish and plants that feed off of fish poop.
Yes.
Right. So algae predominantly, but so here's the thing. I think we're going to have solar-powered aquaponics, and we're going to have chemical printers.
Ooh, chemical printers.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Right.
Like, I already know that the ability to grab, a couple 3D printers and take them to a location with the appropriate amount of plans and material, that you can build a house, a warehouse even. You can build a large garage. That is possible today. Mm-hmm. Nobody's doing it, right? There's like a handful of people who are like, my company's going to be this, where this is what we do. And so they're prototyping and, they're in their beta stages. They're launching their businesses, that kind of a thing. So, but it's possible to be done. Mm-hmm. It's possible. But their plans already exist for these things. So, you get some sort of, I don't know, some cement, something that's like a cement 3D printer, or something that prints foam. Right? Oh my gosh, dude! All of a sudden, bam! You just print off what you need. You can go anywhere.
So like the house printers that they have.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. But so the difference is that you don't have to drag a whole bunch of heavy equipment to your location, right? You only need to drag whatever the material is that you're going to print with,
right?
And the printers.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you don't have to clear a driveway. You could just find like a meadow on, 30 acres of land that's never had a vehicle touch it, and airdrop some 3D printers in there and some people and build a structure.
Nice.
I think that's a cool idea.
I like it.
I think it should be done. I also like the idea of marrying the solar-powered aquaponics with the concept of the Earth ship.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So one of the things that I think that, it's an answer that we need and we cannot have while government is in the way.
Oh, the Earth ship?
What kind of structure do we work with?
Right.
until we have all of the restrictions out of the way, we will not know which format of and I expect that it's climate dependent, right? So different parts of the world will respond better to different structures.
Sure.
But I think there will be some structures which are useful in every climate. And we literally cannot know which is which until government gets the fuck out of the way.
Agreed.
And I mean, everyone wants to solve the homeless problem, right? I mean, every decent human being with a soul wants there to not be homeless people who don't want to be homeless, right?
Yeah.
Well, we can't ever have that until you get the fuck out of the way of people who are building shitty houses. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
Yeah, regulations makes them shitty, and it what it does is it disincentivizes innovation, which is all of the problems that the Earthships had, and still do, right? Except for in the little place that the government said, okay, well, you can experiment here now. They had to like sort of win their own reservation, if you will, in which to conduct their kooky Earthship experiments. For those of you who don't know what an Earthship is, it is a self-sustaining house. Right? If you think of a house as a thing that you own and a place that you go and you live your life in, it is a house, but it lives in cooperation with the Earth, and that it is mostly made of Earth. It is solar powered. It collects all of its own rainwater. It is its own water filtration system. It is a garden. It is a waste treatment facility. It heats itself and cools itself. They are sort of location dependent right now, but they're coming out with more and more stuff. These guys, man, we're like,
to add a little bit of specificity.
Yeah.
The usual way of making an Earthship is to dig into the Earth instead of building upon it.
Well, yeah. Well, so the Earthships in particular, what they do is they take recycled or old tires.
That is the easiest and
they,
most common way of making them.
And they pound them full of earth, and then those are sort of the walls, the internal structure of the Earthship itself, and then the rest of it is sort of built around that. And they give classes on this stuff. You can buy a week of training, go help and go build one or participate in building one. I'm not up to that kind of a task. That's something I want to pay somebody to do, right?
Right.
Like, I bought this piece of land, and how much for you to come out and build me an Earthship? That's kind of the thing I want to do. I think that'd be great. But marrying that with solar-powered aquaponics.
Right.
Right? So now all of a sudden you've decentralized produce, right? If you think about it,
yeah.
Like even if just a few people have these Earthships, they're literally self-sustaining. They are. I don't know why they're not more popular amongst libertarians, because you talk about gardening and how like that's a thing, and like raising your own. You have to have land to have like pigs and chickens and stuff like that. But like you could do that with an Earthship, except now you're completely off grid, so you're free. Right? Your electricity is free, quote unquote. It's a solar system.
Well, I can tell you why this isn't more popular with local libertarians is because land taxes.
Yeah, that's true.
You have to pay land taxes in order to have land. You have to have land in order to have an Earthship.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's that.
That's what I should do. I should just buy some land and see if I can hire some guys to build me an Earthship.
That sounds awesome.
I wonder if I can.
I
wonder if I can bullshit my way into that scenario.
That is what should have happened to Grafton. So, I don't know a great amount about Grafton. I haven't read the book about the bear and the hippie. But what should have happened there was definitely Earthships. So, okay, great. You had a bunch of libertarian hippies who showed up with not much of a plan.
Right.
Okay. Well, what should have happened there was, say, for example, someone who had already gotten into crypto, because that is definitely some of us, should have gone, hey, hippies, what do you think about Earthships? Found maybe the most knowledgeable one to head up a project and be like, hey, here's some land. And hell, if they were especially clever, they could have gotten like an extra loan from the government and been like, hey, this is a research project.
Get a government grant to build your libertarian utopia.
You know, it's easier than it sounds. Because they are handing out educational grants left and right. You just got to phrase it right.
Yeah, yeah. You have to find yourself a grant writer, which is a career.
That's true.
That's a career title, grant writer. One who writes and petitions the government for money. Because that's where grants go. I mean, I guess there's private grants too, but yeah. My guess is the majority of them coming from the government. That's my guess. I don't know that for a fact.
Yeah.
I've done zero research. Me and my crack team of, well, me.
So, I'll tell you, one of the things that being a libertarian puts in the most fog, that dude in the question mark suit, or was it an exclamation mark suit? I will get you money from the government.
Oh, yeah.
Is he a villain or a hero? On the one hand, he's assisting the theft of millions of dollars. On the other hand, he's getting regular people to have some of their money back.
Right. I think it's like anything else.
Robin Hood-esque.
I think it's like anything else. It's a tool. What are you going to use it for? Right? What's your intent?
Okay. Well, then you should vote. If those rules are consistent, then it depends on what you use your tool for.
Which rules? I didn't say voting was a tool. I said if you vote, you're a tool. That's not what I said.
So voting is not a tool.
What are you comparing the mechanic of voting to?
I was comparing the mechanic of voting to the mechanic of getting money from the government.
Oh, the exclamation point guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lesko or whatever his name was.
Let's go.
I'm pretty sure it's like Gary Lesko or something.
It wasn't previous Leon, that's for sure.
It was for sure not previous Leon.
Yeah. I don't think the two mechanics are similar. One is giving you the illusion of choice. The other one is a choice that you can choose not to make. You can choose not to get money from the government at all. The mechanics are completely different between the two. Whereas voting is like...
Well, hold on. You can choose not to get money from the government, and you can choose not to vote.
Both, yes.
Right.
All of the above. These are things I'm choosing.
Okay. But you just said that with getting money from the government, it's how you use the tool, not the tool itself.
No, you were asking, is the exclamation guy a hero or not?
Or a villain.
Or a villain. It depends on his intent.
And given the dress code, he's obviously one or the other.
Well, which one is he, though?
That's the question. And you said, well, it's just a tool, so it depends on what the intent is.
I meant his intent.
Okay.
Not, so voting isn't a fictional character.
Okay.
Right, whereas this guy is.
So when I vote, I have an intent. Is that equally important to his intent with getting people money from the government?
No.
Why?
His intent is to make a living. No? It's not his intent?
I'm out.
Is that... Where did Peakless go? What have you done? I hope you're proud of yourselves. It is about time for us to end the program. I want to take us out, of course, with a song, as I am wont to do. I have a very particular song from a band that I'm a big fan of. This is Show Some Love, Tear It Down by Suicidal Tendencies.
Show some love. Show some love. Tear it down.